Jack and I had known each other since middle school. We weren't exactly the smartest kids, but we weren't dumb either. When we were about 21, we had a talk and decided that we weren't going to burden ourselves with huge university debts. We realized there was good money to be made in trades. Plumbers were always in demand, and Jack's uncle Greg was a plumber. He was older than Jack's dad and was reaching an age where he was happy to have a couple of apprentices he could underpay while they learned from him. He had been careful with his money, so retirement was on the horizon, and he was thinking about moving to Nevada where the warmer winters would be easier on his health. Jack imagined either him or both of us taking over the business and expanding it. So, we joined his uncle Greg, worked as apprentices for low pay, but learned all the skills we needed. We had a plan, but before we could execute it, we had to deal with the usual challenges of growing up, learning about life, work, and relationships. We learned what made people become and stay friends, what people valued, and how to be good company, loyal, and supportive. In school, we always had each other's backs. People quickly learned that if they messed with one of us, they had to deal with both of us. We weren't huge guys, but we were tough from sports and had our share of fights. Our friendship was solidified one day when I had trouble with two big guys from the soccer team, and Jack jumped in with swinging fists. Before they knew it, we had taken both of them down, and after that, no one wanted to mess with us. When it came to girls, Jack was a bit of a player, always with a different girl on his arm. Me, Luke, by the way. I became infatuated with Natalie in my first year out of school as Jack and I were learning the plumbing trade from his uncle Greg. I met Natalie in a cafe one night, and we just hit it off. We liked each other and spent a lot of time together. Eventually, it moved to the bedroom, and we found we were just as compatible there. Jack felt like a third wheel and wasn't happy about losing his wingman, but he said I had done well for myself and that if I hadn't connected with her first, he would have liked to see where things could have gone with Natalie. We all got along so well, it felt like we were all family. Natalie and Jack would hug fondly, and I thought nothing of it. We were buddies. You never have to worry about your buddy around your girl, right? As time went on, Uncle Greg retired, sold the business to Jack and me, and moved to Nevada. My parents co-signed a loan that helped me buy my part of the business. Jack's money came as a gift from his parents, so I was the only one with debt. I married Natalie 3 years ago, and life seemed pretty sweet. Marriage was good, the business was thriving, and we were growing it. A little advertising, some social media with past client recommendations, and soon we were as busy as we could manage. We thought about hiring more guys, but trained plumbers weren't easy to find at rates we could afford, so we worked longer hours. Natalie worked as a receptionist in an insurance office. The pay was okay, but she didn't enjoy the work, and there was a creep of a salesman who hit on her, but she fended him off. She said she was looking forward to starting a family. I wasn't sure when that would be, with my loan and all. We were doing okay, but it wasn't the right time to lose her income with my long hours and no real chance to start the family. Natalie began to retreat into herself, and I started to worry about depression. I kept telling her that things would get better and that happy days were ahead, but that didn't stop her unhappiness. Then one day, it was like a switch flipped. Natalie had a smile on her face, and the tension was gone. I wondered what had happened but was happy to see my wife smiling again, so I didn't overthink it. Soon, our stalled sex life came alive again, with Natalie needing sex almost every day. Who would complain about that? Then one day, I noticed she was more interested in weird fetishes. I was happy but also concerned because it wasn't like her. A few weeks later, I needed to talk to someone, and the obvious choice was my best friend, Jack. We met at a bar, bought a couple of beers, and took a booth at the back wall. "What's eating you, buddy?" Jack asked. "You've been off for the last few weeks." I didn't want to interfere, but am here if you need to talk. It's about Natalie. She was down, hated her job, and had that snake of a salesman hitting on her. Then about 7 weeks ago, she changed, happy as can be, and 2 weeks later, she's trying to screw me to death almost every day. And your problem with a happy wife trying to screw you is what? Jack said with a smirk. Well, after a couple of weeks, I noticed she suddenly became very fond of weird acts. Thing is, she's never shown any interest before. It got me thinking, where is this coming from? Is she learning new tricks with someone else? Jack said something, and I caught a slight look of panic on his face before he quickly recovered. It's all good, Luke. We stayed a couple of hours and drank some beers, but now I had two people who concern me. I'm not an educated man, but I've heard of Occam's razor. When various solutions present themselves, the most obvious one is usually the correct answer. Over breakfast that Sunday morning, I said to Natalie, I have a lot of work today. Just telling you it'll be gone most of the day so you can invite your lover over. Natalie looked totally shocked, unable to form words. You know the guy who loves having his balls sucked? Want to tell me about him? She ran to the bedroom, sobbing. I walked out to my truck. The jobs weren't going to do themselves. I had lied. I was only going to work until lunchtime, and yes, the dumb bitch had fallen for it. When I got home, there was Jack's truck in the driveway. When I walked in, they were on opposite ends of the couch, a box of tissues between them, and maybe 30 used tissues on the floor. Jack stood up to meet me. Luke, he managed to say just before my fist exploded in his face. He went down hard, blood streaming from his nose and mouth. No need to apologize, my best friend. She's your problem now, Natalie. Pack your stuff and get out, you cheating slut. I never want to see your face again as long as I live. As she started to speak, I yelled, I don't want to hear your lies. Just pack and get out. You can get the rest later. It took just a few minutes for her to emerge with a bag, and Jack had managed to get as far as the couch, mopping up the blood. Right. Get out of my house. You'll hear from my lawyer next week. I held the door open. Natalie couldn't look at me, but Jack tried to speak, so I punched him again, and he got the message. They left in Jack's truck. I spent the rest of the day researching divorce and dissolving a company. I went to see my divorce lawyer, Susan Jameson, and before getting into it, I asked her what I needed to do to dissolve my partnership with the man who fucked my wife. She told me she'd bring her husband Patrick into the meeting, as company law was his specialty. The divorce was Simplino kids, separate finances, no shared assets other than the business. The complication was the business. It started before I married Natalie, and she had signed a prenup acknowledging it as a non-marital asset. Patrick read our business agreement and declared it simple to dissolve. Luke, you can sell your half of the business to anyone. If you want it to survive, sell it to Jack. Make him pay dearly for it. If you want to damage it, sell to a larger company that will liquidate it. The downside is your employees might suffer. We had 6 guys working with us. Good guys. I didn't want to see them hurt. The other option was to walk away and let the business fail, but I couldn't do that. My parents guaranteed my loan. I couldn't stick them with it. Natalie was to be served divorce papers at her workplace, and Jack was to be served notice to dissolve our partnership. The next few days, I didn't go to work. Jack called, emailed, but I ignored him. I didn't care about the business anymore. Then my phone exploded with messages from Natalie and Jack. I sent them a photo of my raised middle finger. Natalie hadn't tried to talk to me since Saturday. She knew our marriage was over. That evening, they showed up at my house. She used her key to let them in. I started punching Jack again. Please, Luke, we need to talk, he pleaded. Natalie doesn't want me. She loves you. I don't want her either. I'm not the settling down type. You need to get past this and get the business running. I looked at him. I'm selling my half to Davis Electric. They offered a good price. They'll talk to you at the office tomorrow in front of our staff. I'm selling to the highest bidder. You have 30 days to make a satisfactory buyout offer. I took the door key from Natalie and locked the door behind them. At the office, I gathered everyone together. They deserved to know what was happening. Jack sat tight-lipped as I started. Guys, I have bad news. My wife, Natalie, and Jack here have been having an affair for at least 2 months. If I find out anyone here knew, there will be a reckoning. Assuming you didn't know, erase the deal. I'm selling my half of the business. Jack can't meet my price, so I'm selling to Davis Electric. They might close this business and maybe take on some of you, but maybe not. I'm sorry, but I can't stay in business with Jack. I need to get out from under the debt and start again somewhere else. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to talk to Jack about our options. When the office cleared, Jack erupted. For fuck's sake, Luke, did you need to go nuclear? Surely we can sort this out. Natalie doesn't want me, she loves you. I don't want her either. I'm not the settling down sort. You need to get past this and get the business up and running properly. I smiled coldly. Yeah, I hate Davis Electric, but not as much as I hate you. The clock is running on your 30 days. What, 24 or 25 left? Then believe me, I will sell to them, and I hope they close you down. You will not get one day longer than that deadline. If you have not started trying to raise finance, you're a bigger fool than I took you for. One more thing before I go. I will not do one more piece of work for this company. It's all on you. If you'd worked harder instead of fucking my wife, maybe we wouldn't be having this talk, you snake. And another thing, do right by Natalie, or it'll do some serious damage to you. Got it? Jack tried again. Please, Luke. You know I need you. I can't run this without you. Let's try and get past this. My raised middle finger as I walked out gave him the answer. I arrived home to find a message from my lawyer. Natalie had asked for a meeting tomorrow afternoon, and she wanted to bring her father and her lawyer, who happened to be the very creep who had hit on her at work. She seemed to have fallen from the top of the stupid tree and hit every branch on the way down. I agreed to the meeting. The next day, I arrived early to speak to my lawyer, but she had nothing to suggest other than to let the other side talk and see what was on their mind. Natalie could barely make eye contact. Her father, Roger, was his usual solid self, sincere and honest. Sorry to meet under these circumstances, Luke. Please just keep an open mind. I shook his hand warmly. Good to see you, Roger. Her lawyer was another matter. I took an instant dislike to him. He had no sooner been introduced to me than he said, "Right, Luke, let's get this nonsense sorted out and get you two back together." I gave him a stern look. "That is not going to happen, Cooper. Call me Mr. Hill." I released my grip and he nodded. My lawyer said, "Mrs. Hill, please tell us why you called this meeting. The terms of the divorce are fair, and your husband has no wish to reconcile with you after your treacherous adultery." Cooper jumped in. "I'm sorry, but that is a gross overstatement of the facts." I cut him off. "No, Cooper, it was an accurate statement of the facts. Are you here to bullshit or help this meeting along?" Finding her voice, Natalie said, "Please, everyone. I can answer for myself. I asked for this meeting because I don't want a divorce. I love my husband despite what I've done. Please, Luke, sit down and talk to me and let me try to explain myself." I was about to bite her head off when Roger interjected. "Please, Luke, just talk to her. The two of you alone. That's all I ask." Roger had always treated me well, as had his wife, Karen. I respected him, so I nodded. "Okay, Roger, but just one meeting and that's it. I won't change my mind, but I'll do this out of respect for you and Karen." I have no respect left for Natalie. My lawyer spoke up. "There is no problem if you two meet at any time. However, I advise we discuss any objections to the terms of the petition for divorce so that we all know where we stand. If your discussion proves fruitless, are there any objections to the terms of the divorce? My client feels the terms are fair. However, she reserves the right to seek court-appointed counseling." "Okay, duly noted. Then our meeting is over if there are no objections to terms to discuss." Leaving the office, Natalie and her father approached me. Roger again thanked me. God, I really liked him. You couldn't have a better father-in-law. Every look he gave me was laced with apologies for his daughter's behavior. I shook his hand again and invited Natalie to call at 5 p.m. the next day. I told her all the rest of her things were boxed and ready to go if she wanted to ask her father to bring her over. At 5 p.m., the doorbell rang. Natalie stood there. Her father sat in his car. Manners prompted me to invite him in and pour him a drink. But this was between Natalie and me. It had to be sorted out with no interference from anyone else. I suggested we use the dining table, the most formal setting the house provided. I wanted no misunderstanding. This was a business meeting. Natalie appeared nervous. She should have known nothing good would come of this. I've been crystal clear that what she had done was unforgivable. I wouldn't change my stance on that. A random stranger in a bar after too many drinks? Unlikely, but that might just get her a second chance after a lot of humble pie. But cheating with my best friend and business partner multiple times? She was insane if she thought that was even in the ballpark of forgiveness. But I had promised Roger I'd give her a hearing. What do you want to tell me, Natalie? That I love you, that I was in a bad place. I hated work. I hated that bastard who is now my divorce lawyer. I hated that you worked so hard. I knew it was so we could get in a place to start a family, but I felt lost. I hardly ever saw you. I did what I had promised not to do. So it's all my fault, and you just fell and landed on Jack's lap. Is that it, Natalie? Because that's bullshit that I'm not buying. No, Luke, that's not what I'm saying. I am trying to tell you that I was depressed. I've been to see Dr. Clark and had given me antidepressants, but I couldn't bring myself to take them. I felt humiliated, needing something like that when I had a good marriage with a great man and great life stretching out in front of me. You know I wanted to start a family. You said we couldn't, and I saw nothing but that job I hate and no sign of us starting the family I was so desperate for. You know this, Luke. We talked about it. You know how hard I was finding it. But you said we had to wait. I resented that so much. Well, everything she said there was true. She had been desperate for a family. I wanted one too. But the time wasn't right. She continued. One evening, Jack called. When I told him you were working late again, he was amazed. He said he rarely worked late and couldn't understand why you would be. That's why you employ guys, he said. I started to think, were you just making up late jobs? Were you seeing someone when you could have been home with me? I already felt depressed, and this hit me hard. If your partner isn't working late, why were you, Luke? I broke down in tears and Jack comforted me, just like the big brother he's always seemed to me. Then I suddenly reached for him and kissed him. It was me, Luke, not Jack. I reacted to his kindness and got carried away. That's how it started. My fault. I felt him get hard against me. I needed the affection, and it went on from there. Not supposed to happen. We called it off twice, both saying we couldn't do this to you, but I kept begging him. My depression was in charge, and I needed the comfort. That Saturday you came home at lunchtime. We hadn't done anything, just talked and I cried. That was it. No more. We had to stop. We decided it had to be over. Then you walked in, and everything turned to shit. Luke, I know how badly Jack and I have hurt you, but you need to know we don't love each other, but both of us do love you. We can't undo what we did, but we both beg you to think this over and please give both of us another chance. I looked at her. I had no idea how well she thought her speech had played out with me. There was very little sign of hope in her eyes. Just as well, because what she had said held very little water for me. All it had taken to snap her out of her depression had been my best friend's affection. That, in summary, was what she was selling. I had no idea why she thought there was any way back for her. You have a very strange way of showing your love for me, Natalie. None of that excuse makes me feel any better about either of you. Both of you are cheating scum. I want nothing to do with either of you now. I've listened to you, hoping you might have something to say that would make me feel you were worthwhile. But you are not. You are just cheating trash. I want nothing to do with you ever again. Then the tears started again. But I was past listening, past caring. Just sign the divorce papers, Natalie. Then we can get on with our lives. I will never, and I mean never, forgive you. You don't seem to understand what cheating with my best friend means to me. It is the end. Full stop. Nowhere to go. Natalie, I didn't think it was possible to fall out of love with you. But you have achieved that. I feel nothing but revulsion for you. Pure, unadulterated disgust. You make my skin crawl. I will never be able to think fondly of you again if I live to be 100. I led her to the door and she sobbed all the way. I caught her father's eye and just shook my head sadly toward him. He nodded his understanding and got out of the car, wrapping his arms around her. He softly said, "Okay, what a mess," and put her in the car. He came with me to retrieve the rest of Natalie's things, and we loaded the car while she sat sobbing. Then he drove her out of my life again. Roger and I shook hands for the final time. In all honesty, I had a greater lump in my throat saying goodbye to this decent man than I had dismissing his daughter. I respected his calm support for her, but his acceptance of the inevitable. A good man who certainly had not raised his daughter to be unfaithful. Now to deal with Jack. Halfway through the 30-day notice period, Jack called me. I really didn't want to talk to him, but both he and I, plus 6 decent men, had skin in the game, and the business had to be sorted out. Jack, what do you want? If it's not about selling the business, I'm hanging up. Relax, Luke, it's the business. I've spoken to the bank. How much are you looking for your share? 300 grand. What? You only paid 150 grand. Be reasonable, Luke. I can't pay that. I just don't have it. You know things are going well, but cash flow is tight. Are you stupid, Jack? You can't buy it out of cash flow. You need to raise capital yourself. You're buying the business. It's not buying itself. You are a dumbass. It'll be doing you a favor selling to Davis Electric. You'll run it into the ground. Look, I've tried to tell you I need you, and so do the 6 guys who work for us. I'm sorry for what happened. I'm truly sorry. But you have to help us. 250. I laughed at him. That is just what I'm hoping for, my former best friend. 300 is what Davis Electric has offered me. If you beat it, I won't go back to them for a counteroffer. Not for you. Understand that. I hope to see you bankrupt, but for the futures of the rest of the guys. I hung up. A week later, he called me again. I'm begging you, Luke. The maximum I can raise is $280,000. Would you consider keeping a small share? I hung up. As deadline day approached, Jack called again. Okay, I've got it. They'll give you the 300 grand. I hung up. What the hell, man? I met your price. 300 grand. Why did you hang up? I told you that was Davis Electric's bid. You had to beat it. Do it, or I sell to them. Look, for fuck's sake, tell me what I need to do. I can't raise any more. 305 will buy it. You want it? That is the price. Okay, you got it. I hung up. On deadline day, my lawyer confirmed that the funds had been received. I was out. Nothing to keep me here. I planned to tidy up my loose ends after the divorce and move on somewhere else. After all, a good plumber is always in demand. A few months had passed before I got a court date for the divorce hearing. I hoped it would be cleared up, and then I'd leave town for a new life. Leave this mess behind me. Yeah, that was going to happen. Everything started well. It was agreed that the terms were acceptable to both parties. Then the spanner was thrown into the works. Natalie's slimeball lawyer said, Mrs. Hill requests the court to order counseling. You've got to be kidding me, I shouted. The judge called for silence. Mr. Hill, you will not use that language in my court. I will consider reasons for counseling. I apologized, and Susan Jameson rose to speak on my behalf. Counseling will achieve nothing due to the egregious nature of the betrayal. In this case, my client's wife had an affair over at least 2 months. My client has no intention of reconciliation with her. He has made that abundantly clear to her. There is no prospect of forgiveness, never mind reconciliation. Counseling would be a futile waste of time. Mr. Cooper stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Hill would like to address yourself if possible. So be it. Mrs. Hill, you may speak. What will counseling achieve? Natalie rose. She looked frail, not at all well. I hadn't seen her in months, but she looked a shadow of the woman I once loved. Your Honor, I did a terrible thing to my husband. I know that, and he'll regret it for the rest of my life, no matter what happens here today. I know, too, that he thinks he hates me now, that it's hard to live with. I feel I'm falling apart mentally and physically. I'm taking antidepressants, but they are not helping. I just need one thing. I need my husband to love me again. Without that, I am lost. When I did what I did, I was in a depression, wasn't thinking straight, and was emotionally lower than I've ever been. Well, until now, that is. Now, life is not worth living. Your Honor, I need the chance to convince him that I love him, and all I've ever wanted since I met him is to love him, to be the mother of his children, and to live the rest of my life with him. Please, Your Honor, give me that chance. The judge considered her words. Mrs. Hill, I hear a lot of words spoken in this court. It is my job to decide their value. I feel that I have just listened to very heartfelt, contrite words. You have my sympathy for your plight, madam, but I have to decide if counseling would achieve anything positive for the marriage. Mrs. Hill, it takes 2 to tango. I see no evidence that your husband can be swayed. Mr. Hill, would you accept counseling? Your Honor, I mean no disrespect, but no, I have no interest in counseling or reconciliation with Natalie. In fact, if ordered, I would reluctantly leave myself open to jail time rather than attend such meetings. Things have gone too far, Your Honor. I am somewhat moved by what Natalie has said today, but the betrayal was too complete. I cannot forgive it or forget it, and I can't even consider living with her again. As I thought, Mr. Hill, this is a sad case. I feel Mrs. Hill has a genuine love for her husband, but that is not enough to force him into counseling. I'm granting the divorce and no counseling is ordered. And that was it, or should have been. 3 weeks later, disaster struck. Luke, It's Roger. Can you get to the hospital? What is happening, Roger? Why are you calling? Luke, I'm sorry to ask, but it's Natalie. She may not make it, and she is asking to see you. They'll be there, Roger. I arrived at the hospital and asked where Natalie was. I was asked if I was a relative and explained we were recently divorced, but that she had asked for me. Roger saw me and met me. Luke, I don't know how to tell you, so we'll just spit it out. She's pregnant. She's in danger of losing the baby and her own life. She hasn't been eating right. She's the first pregnant woman I know who has lost weight during her pregnancy. I think she's dying, Luke. She wants to talk to you. Please, Luke, talk to her. I was taken to the emergency room, and she looked awful, barely conscious of what was happening around her. But when I took her hand, she sadly said, "Sorry, Luke, I can't keep our child alive. I'm trying, but my body is useless. I haven't wanted to live. I didn't know I was pregnant when I decided to starve myself. I'm sorry. I'm killing our child. I didn't mean to, just myself." She could see the conflict in my eyes. She obviously knew I was thinking the baby might be Jack's. Then she said, "The baby is yours, Luke. I made him use a condom every time." Then she lost consciousness. I felt my cheeks wet with tears. I surprised myself that I obviously had not expunged all feelings for her. Did this make things different? I supposed it did. But would either of them survive? If not, it would make no difference at all. The machine she was hooked up to started to go into alarm mode when she lost consciousness. I was shooed out of the room as the medics went to work. Outside sat Roger. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years since I'd seen him at the courthouse. One word to sum him up: haggard. "Well, Luke, I'm sorry. When I discovered she was pregnant, I just assumed that it was probably Jack's baby. But she was definite. That was not possible. She had cheated, but she never wanted anyone's children but yours. I didn't feel I had the right to come to you about it. If I was wrong, I'm sorry. It's been tough trying to get her to take care of herself. Karen has surprised me, and not in a good way. She felt so let down by what Natalie did to you. It seems like she isn't interested in her daughter. She seems to have given up on her. Luke, I don't want your sympathy. I'm just trying to explain things. I'm feeling between a rock and a very hard place. I'm at my wit's end, to tell you the truth. Now this." I patted Roger's arm. He was a good man in a bad place due to the actions of others, trying to do the right thing for everyone, even if he wasn't getting everything right. It came from a good place. I hurt for him. We sat for 3 or 4 hours. Then a doctor approached and asked who was the next of kin. Roger said, "You can talk to both of us together." "What is the situation?" "Well, the immediate crisis has passed, and both mother and baby are hanging on. And gentlemen, I mean hanging on. Neither are in good health. I fear for the mother, but the baby, I'm afraid, may have health issues. If it survives to full term, we will obviously be keeping her for the next number of days. We are going to work on getting her body back in some sort of better shape to support the pregnancy. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but I have to ask, how has she become malnourished to this extent?" Roger explained the situation of the breakup and divorce, Natalie's lack of motivation to keep going, and then belatedly discovering that she was pregnant. "Okay, so you, sir, are the baby's father, I assume," the doctor said, looking at me. "So it appears, doctor. But until a few hours ago, I knew nothing of it. If the child survives, they'll want a DNA test, and if it is my child, they'll step up to support it." I looked at Roger and added, "I'm sorry, Roger. They'll support the child, but I cannot get back with Natalie. There is just too much hurt." The doctor looked at me seriously and said, "Sir, it may be none of my business, but I'll tell you this so we are clear. It's really not my place as a doctor to say this, but man to man, they'll tell you, judging by the condition of your ex-wife and what her father has told me, it would not be a surprise to me if you became a single parent within a year." I shrank into my seat. Great. A doctor trying to guilt-trip me into taking her back. I said nothing for now. It turned out she was 6 months pregnant, and there was barely a suggestion of a baby bump. That poor kid must be having a hard time. Was it my kid? Quite possibly. It seemed likely that Natalie, in her depressed state, had screwed up her birth control. And certainly, we were having a lot of sex. Whether it was true or not that she had made Jack use condoms, the number of times we had sex made me the likely father. If it was my kid, could I walk away? Would I want to walk away? What sort of relationship could I stand to have with the mother of the child? Life was becoming very complicated just when I thought I had extricated myself from my problems and was preparing to get out of town. Amazingly, mother and child survived under the specialist care they received once her pregnancy and difficulties were understood. The baby was born a little over 5 pounds. Very light, but much lighter babies had survived and thrived. The child, a boy, was surprisingly otherwise healthy. Natalie gained weight under supervision and came through relatively undamaged, though there was a question on what damage she may have wrought on herself and her future ability to conceive. Unluckily, from my viewpoint, a DNA test confirmed that I was the father of the child, a complication I had dreaded for the last 3 months since becoming aware of the possibility. I'd always thought fatherhood would have been one of the joys of my life, but the experience was seriously tainted. It appeared likely that this would mean a lifetime involvement with a woman I could no longer tolerate. Nothing had changed. I had no wish to ever see her again, much as I hadn't wished her dead when that was a real possibility. 3 or 4 days after the birth, Roger once again was the one to contact me. "Luke, I'm calling about the baby. Natalie wants to know if you want to have a say in deciding the boy's name." "Roger, I hadn't even thought about it. We're divorced. I didn't expect to be consulted. One thing I would like is that she doesn't use my surname. Perhaps she can use your name, Carter. Does that sound reasonable?" "Look, I'm sorry, but I think you need to talk to her. She is still calling herself Natalie Hill. It could cause problems for the child if his name was different from both mother and father. Besides, don't you want to see your son, Luke?" I hesitated, thought about it, then decided this was something I had to do. "She's still staying with you, Roger?" "Yeah." "Okay, I'll come over tonight after dinner. 7 p.m. "Okay. See you then, Luke." I arrived on the dot of 7, and Roger let me in. I hadn't seen Karen in many months. She looked drawn and suddenly a lot older, just as Roger had. Two good people put in a difficult position. Karen hugged me and whispered in my ear, "It's not how we raised her, Luke." Then they left me alone with Natalie and the baby. "Hello, Luke. Thank you for coming. Would you like to hold the baby?" It wasn't the little guy's fault. I took him in my arms and looked at him. Big mistake. I suddenly felt what parents are supposed to when they hold their child. The emotion took over, and I found it hard to breathe for a while. He looked up and gazed into my eyes. I had no idea what he was thinking, but it probably revolved around a familial recognition of sorts and a need for protection. I was hooked. I started to smile at him. Shit, I had no idea if this was what she expected to happen, but she too was smiling. "He's cute, isn't he?" I nodded in agreement. Then my heart broke again. Damn it, Natalie. Why did you do this to us? We could have been perfect. This could have been our dream. The best days of our lives. She teared up and said, "We still can be, Luke. Can't you learn to forgive me?" I was seriously unwell. I made a really bad series of choices. "Please, Luke, please try." I tried to hand him back to her, intending to flee and not come back, but she wouldn't take him. "Damn it, Natalie, take your son. I need to get out of here." I was close to panic. "No, Luke, we need to talk. If nothing else, the boy needs a name. But you are not a coward. You have never run from anything. Please talk to me. We have to work things out. For his sake and ours too." I sat down again, still holding my son. This was going to be difficult. I was lost and had no idea what to do. Having looked into his eyes, I knew I couldn't abandon him. "James Carter Hill. How does that sound?" I said quietly. She smiled and said she liked that. The two best men in her life. It was on the tip of my tongue to ask if she didn't prefer Jack as a name, but I held it back. "Natalie, I have a problem. I want him in my life, but I don't want you. He'll never forgive what you did, whether you were ill or not. You did that, and did it repeatedly with my former best friend. I can't live with that, Natalie, and I can't live with you. I can't live with someone I don't love. You need to think of some way we can work with this. They'll support my son, but that's it." Having sold my share of the business and planning to leave town, the arrival of a son made me reevaluate. I was going to hang around in the short term at least. So, although I still had a lump of money after repaying my loan and having my parents' guarantee canceled, I needed to work. Plumbing was all I knew. So, I set up as a sole proprietor. I had my truck from our old business and had a sign maker redo the decal. The new business was Luke Hill Plumbing. If Jack didn't like it, he could spend money suing me if he could afford it. Nothing ever happened, but people knowing who I was, I soon had all the work I wanted. I set up a payment for child support for James. Nothing was court-ordered. I set up an amount I thought was reasonable. Natalie didn't argue. Without telling her, I also established a college fund for James. If he was like his father and didn't want to go to college, he would get the money on his 25th birthday. Things were okay, but I was marking time for what? I had no idea. I'd planned to start fresh. That included my hopes of meeting someone new to share my life with. That was going to be more difficult back in our town, where many people knew who I was and what had happened to my marriage. So, it was a pretty frustrating time for me. I worked, visited my son, and did very little else. I had worked out visitation with James, but nothing was satisfying. Roger, my ex-father-in-law, was still the go-between, and often it was him who I met when I picked up James. I made it clear I wanted as little contact with Natalie as possible. I had no thoughts of ever forgiving her, nor of having any relationship with her. 6 months later, Roger told me that Natalie again seemed to be struggling mentally. Like me, her life was filled with work and James. Roger said she had not dated at all since becoming a mother, said she had no interest, and rebuffed all approaches to her, including, interestingly, an approach from Jack. That caught my attention. I'd assumed that would be her natural future, even though Jack had said he didn't want her. Maybe he just wanted her as a casual hookup, an uncomplicated one at that. No need to wine and dine her. I thought it was time that Snake felt a little more pain. I was concerned that if Natalie was again spiraling down, it would have implications for James. I even wondered if I should seek to have her deemed an unfit mother and seek full custody. Really? Was I ready for that in my life? Full-time, single parenthood? Probably not. So, what was the alternative? I needed to see that she stayed healthy and fit to be his mother. How? Whatever way I looked at it, that seemed impossible without me having a lot more dealings with her than I wanted, than my wounded pride would allow. She had cheated on me. I couldn't possibly get past that. Forgiveness? Forget it. Surely. Of course, you know where this is going, don't you? Guy gets cheated on, divorces wife is pregnant, it's his kid. He takes her back. Yada, yada, yada. Could I be a man to backslide on my harsh judgment? I never thought so. But life sometimes throws odd things at you. Circumstances you'd never expect to face. Surely the core of our humanity is adapting to our changing reality to survive. Shit, bad news comes in bunches. Roger had told me that Natalie seemed to be struggling again. Now the news on Roger was bad. He had suffered a small stroke. Nothing serious or causing permanent damage, but a warning shot that the poor guy needed to take life easier. With Karen struggling to cope with her daughter's infidelity, Roger had borne the brunt of making sure she and the baby were cared for. Now what? Well, she was no longer my wife, but he was my son. I had to step up in some way. We had a non-family family conference, and it was agreed that everyone but Roger needed to take more responsibility. Natalie needed to stick to her meds and meet her responsibilities as a mother. I had to do more to support her, which Roger had mainly done, and Karen had to step up and help her husband unless she wanted to risk losing him to an early death. The thought of being more involved with Natalie was not pleasant. It made me angry, but I was a father, after all. Time to be one, not just when it suited me. To make it work, I decided I had to cut Natalie some slack to make life easier for her, and thereby make caring for my son easier. I started to take pre-prepared meals to their house twice a week and stayed with them for the evening, leaving when James went down for the night. I cooked basic meals one day every weekend. I wasn't anyone's idea of a cook, but I wasn't poisoning anyone either. My meatloaf was actually not bad. Needless to say, this meant that I was talking to Natalie much more than had been the case for about a year when the shit hit the fan. It started very slowly, brief, stilted conversations, but as time went by, we spoke more as friends would, with the added interest being our shared child. As we grew more comfortable in each other's company, I found that I struggled to maintain my dislike for her. I wouldn't say I was growing fond of her by any means, but I had rediscovered that empathy for another person was not too challenging. I made it my business to ensure that she stuck to her meds regime, and slowly she began to emerge from her latest funk. It really didn't take a rocket scientist to see what medicine she needed. All it took was some smiles and a few kind words from me. She had been almost literally dying from lack of affection, from being treated as a pariah, and of course, when people treat you that way, from lack of self-esteem. Some decent time spent as a family with her son perked her up, and really quickly, I began to ponder, is it right that I treated a woman I loved with all my heart like I had? She had broken my heart, she'd given me cause. Many men will tell you if a wife cheats once, never mind a 2-month affair, it should lead to banishment. But am I not a better man than that? Should I really treat a woman I've loved and now have a child with as utterly worthless? I began to think that, much as I had been wronged, perhaps I'd overdone the retribution on her. After all, I'd beaten my ex-friend badly on 2 occasions. I'd put him in financial difficulties by threatening to sell the company to an aggressive buyer. I'd opened a new business and taken several customers he'd paid for. I might yet make him pay more and pay regularly, but I'd certainly punished my former friend. Should her punishment be so much more complete than his? Well, of course, we had been married. She'd lost that. She'd had to move back in with her parents. She was stuck in a job she hated now, with no end in sight. And of course, she had lost the love she claimed was the only one she wanted. And as she never dated, she was living a lonely life. She'd suffered. We all had. Natalie, Jack, and I had all had our lives turned upside down. There were no winners in what had been a very tight friendship trio, now irreparably ripped apart. Jack was dead to me. I thought Natalie was too, until the complication called James arrived. I'd had a measure of revenge on both sinners. When was enough enough? At one stage, I thought the answer to that would be right about the time hell froze over. Now I had some doubt. I had a son to think of, a complete innocent. I had to man up for him. His mother was borderline depressed since her affair and my discovery, certainly since our divorce and her pregnancy when both she and James could have died. I was reminded of the words that doctor had said, man to man rather than as a medic. Words to the effect that I could be a single parent within a year, giving a clear warning that Natalie was a potential suicide, either deliberately or by default, by simply not taking care of herself. To top it off, one of the best men I'd ever met, my ex-father-in-law Roger, had almost run himself into the ground and ruined his own health by trying to take care of everyone else's problems. Yes, time to man up indeed. I needed to talk to Natalie to make sure she understood exactly what I was proposing. I went to Roger and Karen's house earlier than usual the following Saturday. I needed time to talk alone with Natalie before making my usual meatloaf for everyone. Roger and Karen discreetly gave us space, taking James with them. Natalie, I have been thinking. What we are doing is not giving Roger the best chance to recover his health. Quite frankly, he doesn't need the hassle of you and James under his roof and me being here 3 nights a week. So, I have a plan. I'm thinking you, me, and James should find somewhere to live. I see you smiling, but don't get this wrong. You need to understand that this will be a purely platonic relationship. I've not suddenly gotten past what you and that lowlife Jack did to me. I am rationalizing what it means now in our new circumstances, but it is neither forgiven nor forgotten. It almost certainly never will be. I'm suggesting this purely out of care and respect for your father, who has never been short of wonderful to me. This is not for you, although I think it will result in it being easier for both of us to give James the care he needs. I've also accepted that your issues need someone to keep you straight with your meds, and am prepared to be that person for the benefit of our son, who needs both of his parents. If you form a relationship at any stage with another man, this setup would be finished. We are divorced, but I will not be your babysitter while you go out and see other men. Is that clear? And can you live like I'm describing? Natalie couldn't keep the smile off her face. Yes, Luke, I would agree to anything to be with you and James every day, but I do accept that you are setting boundaries. I will abide by anything you wish, but I tell you, we may be platonic, but it will not stop me from trying to get your interest again. I'm not talking about flaunting myself. I'm talking about behaving like a good wife should do, minus the physical part, unless you ever change your mind. If you do, you will find me willing. If not, I'll take whatever relationship is available with you. And so we got a place, and the three of us moved in. It was a tense way to live. Two people who had been so much in love, one claiming she still was, but leading a celibate lifestyle together. Then for me, being 247 with my son was both a delight and a challenge. Apart from work, James seemed to take every waking hour until he went down for the night. Fortunately, James was a great kid. Despite the problems in pregnancy, he seemed incredibly healthy. Before long, he had reached the supposed perfect weight for his age, and he slept almost every night for a long 8 to 9 hours. This sort of kid dreams are made of. Awake, he was a great little bundle of energy. As time went on, he walked at 10 months and was speaking a handful of words at 14 months. With their domestic life seemingly appearing perfect, despite my continued distrust of Natalie and sometimes blatant antipathy toward her, on bad days, a stranger would have considered us a normal, happy couple. Of course, in our 3-bedroom house, everyone had their own bedroom, the adults using theirs to make the best of relieving the frustration of a celibate lifestyle. I knew that I was not bound to celibacy as I insisted on for myself and for Natalie, but something kept me from looking elsewhere. I had decided if I did get involved with someone, either short or long term, I would keep it away from the house. Roger was now more like the man we were all used to, with the respite of not having to be the primary caregiver for Natalie and James. He was, to all intents and purposes, back to himself and being the strong figure who had helped his family through a big crisis. Karen, too, appeared to be emerging from her funk with Natalie. Of course, it was not a situation that could last. It was contrived. Two people in their early 30s leading a celibate life. Well, of course it wouldn't last. It was Natalie who cracked. She had her sex toys and got herself off regularly, but she missed having proper intimacy with a real man. Shed noticed me becoming edgy and a bit withdrawn over a couple of months. The controlled, emotionless living arrangements they had grown used to were clearly wearing me down. Natalie decided to address the elephant in the room. Look, I love you, and I know you as well as you know yourself. I've never seen you so frustrated. I'm scared of what it might do to us. These last 9 months have been a big relief to me, getting to live with you again, even if the lack of anything physical between us is killing me with need. If you go off the rails, I'm so scared that I can't cope without you. I understood that she had called it right, but I wasn't about to confirm it. I grabbed my keys and said I'd be back later. In all the months since we had moved into the house, this was the first time I had gone out before James was down for the night. Another sign that the pressure cooker was getting dangerously high. Without any thought, I gravitated to a bar, the same one where I often hung out with Jack. It had been the best part of a year since we had talked. I hoped it would be many more years without seeing my former best friend, but I got it wrong. This was not the place I should have come. I was no sooner at the bar when I caught sight of Jack in a mirror behind the bar. Jack was making his way toward me, and I was about to turn and leave, but it was too late. "Can I buy you a drink, stranger?" Jack asked, holding out his hand, offering to shake. It was clear this was Jack holding out an olive branch I had no intention of accepting. "Get out of my face, traitor. Come on, man. Get over it. I've told you 1,000 times I was a fool and I was wrong. I am genuinely sorry. Look, please have a drink with me. I hear you and Natalie are back together and have a kid. That's great news. I'm delighted for you." "Fuck you, Jack. We live together. We are not back together. We never will be because of you. But yes, we share a son. We are not married and never will be again. You saw to that, my best friend. I thought you would have made your moves on her. Then I remembered you're the sort of creep who wants to dip his wick but hasn't the balls for a long-term commitment. Luke, when you divorced her, I did try to get with her again. I was willing to commit long-term. I decided she was worth the effort. But you know what? She told me that you were the only man she wants to settle down with. You get that? You dumped her. You told her you hated her. But Luke, she loves only you. If you weren't such a hard ass, you'd have a woman who knows she fucked up but will never do it again. Luke, I know I am probably the worst best friend in history, but after all our years together, I only want what's best for you. That's what Natalie is, the best thing you could have in your life. Now I know I'm probably making you angry, and if you want to take me outside and beat on me again, then like every other time, I won't throw anything back at you. I'll take what you want to give because I've hurt you enough for one lifetime. I'll never do it again. You know how you suddenly hear something from someone and you don't doubt a word of it? That was one of those moments. It was nowhere close to being something that would rekindle a broken friendship, but it rang true every word. And it was enough that I decided I'd extracted all the revenge I needed on Jack. I looked at Jack, nodded once, and turned and left the bar. Arriving home, I called quietly to Natalie but got no response. I called quietly so as not to wake James. I went over to her closed bedroom door and knocked again. No response. So, I slipped inside to find her quietly sobbing. Almost certainly she was in fear of what had caused me to walk out earlier. I slipped off my clothes, slipped under the covers, and found Natalie naked. I pulled her to me and kissed her hard. She moaned through the kiss and spread herself on her back as I kissed her. I stopped, lifted her chin toward her, and said the immortal words, "If you ever do that again, they'll kill you," as I moved closer. Natalie just kept repeating, "Never, never again. I love you." Thanks for watching this intense story of betrayal and tough choices. What would you do if your best friend and spouse both betrayed you? Could you ever forgive them? Or is that trust broken forever? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories. Until next time, stay strong and stay true.
I stumbled out of bed with a head that felt like it was going to explode. Once in the bathroom, I quickly downed 2 aspirin. My stomach felt like it was going to rebel, so I hung by the toilet for about 10 minutes. During that time, it all came back to me. My name is Dave Wilson, and when I returned from work yesterday, my loving wife Anna blindsided me. She started off telling me that she loved me, but then explained that she had been seeing another man for the past 8 months and was in love with him too. She explained it as a simple act of caring. The man, who she refused to name, had been in a horrible car accident and his wife had been killed while he walked away without a scratch. He felt so terribly guilty about this. Anna explained that she just started out trying to help him deal with his emotional pain, and they'd fallen in love. Yes, she admitted that they had had sex. Anna even admitted that sometimes the sex was very good. Throughout this entire nightmare of a conversation, she insisted that she loved me and would eventually return to me. But as long as this man needed her, she was going to be there for him. She assured me that she would be there for our kids and me as well. The man was considerably younger than her, and she knew that eventually he'd move on. But for however long he needed her, she wanted to be there for him. This was about the worst nightmare any married man could walk into. Stunned, I did what just about any man would do: accused my wife of being a 304 and hooker. At that point, Anna unloaded on me. She told me she was totally disappointed in my reaction. Anna actually had the audacity to say to me that if I really loved her, I would accept the situation. She told me that in our wedding vows, I promised to love, honor, and cherish her. It was clear that Anna was disappointed and angry with me. I was beyond furious, and to keep from hitting her, I started drinking and yelling. When I calmed down a little, I asked her how she would like it if I found another woman. Anna said, "Who would want you?" According to her, I was an overweight, middle-aged man with thinning hair. She also warned me that if I tried to divorce her, she'd ruin me. I was beyond livid and totally at a loss as to what I could or should do at that moment. My brain was in total meltdown. I couldn't process anything logically. Perhaps not my finest moment, but I continued to drink and rage at Anna. She packed a bag and announced that she was leaving and would go to her lover until I could calm down and accept the situation. I didn't remember much after that. As I sat on my boudoir bed, I decided to take stock. Anna was right. I was middle-aged, my hair was thinning, and I had to admit that I was also about 20 pounds overweight. I couldn't do anything about being middle-aged, but I knew I could do something about the hair and the weight. But before I would do anything, I had to find out where my kids were. It was Saturday morning, so they should be here at home. A quick search of the house showed that they weren't. So where the hell did Anna stash them? I was about to call her parents when I heard a car pull up in the driveway. When I looked out the window, it was Anna's car. I could see our kids getting out and heading toward the house. I met Anna at the front door. "Good, I see you're sober," she said with a snap to her voice. "Where were the kids?" I asked with a snap to my voice. "They were with me. I couldn't very well leave the kids with you. You didn't take them to your sex toys house, did you?" I hissed. "Dave, watch your language," she snapped once again. "They were already there," she said, as though that was absolutely natural. "My friend is a wonderfully kind person. You, on the other hand, were disgraceful yesterday." "Fair point about me," I admitted. "But why didn't you take the kids to your parents' place?" "They weren't home," Anna said as she breezed by me and went upstairs. I followed her into our bedroom. "Are you here to stay, or are you going running back to your lover?" "Oh, please, Dave, stop being so childish. I told you how things are going to be. I have no intention of arguing with you about it. The discussion is over. Accept it or don't, that's your choice. Even though you're acting like an idiot, I still love you. And as I told you, when he no longer needs me, I'll be back full time. So what do we do now?" I was fighting to keep my cool. "Right now, I'm going to pack a few things because I'm going to spend a few days with my friend until you finally cool down and accept the situation." "What about the kids?" "I thought that might shame her into staying." "It didn't. If you don't want to watch them, call my parents. I'm sure they will." Anna then packed another bag of clothes and left. At this point, my head was ready to explode. However, I knew I had to keep it together for the kids. But I wasn't going to take Anna's affair lying down. No self-respecting man would. After Anna left, I checked on the kids and asked them if they had any homework. All three said they did. I told them to get on it right away. There was a lot of moaning and groaning until I informed them that when they were finished, we'd go over to Pop and Grammy's house. They're Anna's parents. The kids all cheered. They loved going there because Pop was helping all three of my kids build go-karts. They had been working on them off and on for several months. The carts had to be close to being finished. Anna's parents, Jack and Martha, lived on a small farm about 15 minutes away. They were both retired, and Jack just loved tinkering. In addition to doing a little farming, he loved to build and repair things. He had a very substantial workshop he used for all of his projects, and that's where they worked on the carts when time permitted. I would lend a hand. I'm a certified dealer mechanic for the local Honda dealership. It's the largest dealership in the Tri-County area. I wanted to talk to Anna's parents to see if they knew about her boyfriend, and more importantly, if they knew who he was. I also wanted to get their advice as to what I should do. I had always had a great relationship with them. Since my parents lived 3 states away, I considered Jack and Martha as my surrogate mother and father. However, I was a little apprehensive because I was afraid they would take Anna's side in this whole mess. That would totally destroy our relationship. I went room to room checking that the kids were doing their homework, and they were. It was then that it struck me just how much my kids were my pride and joy. Bobby was the oldest, and he was 15. Only the close family called him Bobby. We started that to avoid confusion as to whether Anna was talking to her son or me. He was quite a football player, but really wasn't big enough to get a scholarship to college. Jessica was a year younger and a typical teenager. She loved to push the boundaries, but was a great student. Sammy, the baby, was only 10. He hated being called the baby, but Anna would still do it. Sammy was a happy accident. We weren't planning on having any more kids when Anna discovered she was pregnant. But Sammy had been such a happy-go-lucky child that he was a joy to have around. While the kids worked upstairs, I made myself a cup of coffee and started to make a list. I had a lot to do, and I didn't know how much time I'd have to do it. The first thing I did was to call my boss, Tom Baker, and fill him in on my problem. I had worked for the dealership since it was founded 18 years ago, and Tom had been my boss for at least 12 years. If I do say so myself, I was one of the better mechanics at the dealership. Tom listened to my tale of woe and was very sympathetic, as his son had gone through a messy divorce a year before. It had gotten really nasty to the point where his son's ex-wife accused him of molesting their daughter. "Damn," I said, "that is one witch." "Tell me about it," Tom said with evident bitterness. "It was touch and go for about a week. We expected the police to arrest Steve at any minute. These are the kind of accusations that are devastating and almost impossible to disprove. The police run scared every time a woman starts pointing the finger at a man. The only thing that saved Steve was his ex-mother-in-law. When Sarah told her mother that Steve had molested her granddaughter, I think she thought that would be the final nail in Steve's coffin. Everyone knows Nancy is ruthless. What I didn't know was that she has an equal share of fairness. She immediately took her granddaughter out of preschool and took her to her general practitioner. Nancy had the doctor examine her granddaughter to determine if she had been molested. The doctor stated unequivocally that there was no way her granddaughter had been molested. Armed with that information, Nancy marched over to the police department and told them if they pursued charges against Steve, she would testify against her daughter. Then Nancy told Sarah that if she pursued this course of action, she would tell the court about her drug problems and she'd lose her daughter. God bless Nancy, I said, somewhat shocked to learn what women are capable of doing to get their way. Amen to that, Tom replied. So if there is anything I can do to help you, let me know, Dave. If it's within my power to make it happen, I will. Since I had 10 personal days and 5 weeks of vacation time accrued, I asked for the following week off. Tom readily agreed, and in fact, he told me if I needed to take all of my personal days and my vacation together, he'd work it out for me. As it turned out, that is precisely what I did. There is something else you can help me with, I explained. I need the name of a good divorce lawyer if you know one. That's easy, he said. Use the attorney my son used. He cleaned Sarah's clock. Steve got primary custody of their daughter, gets to live in the house, and Sarah has to pay child support. His name is Eric Brown. I think I still have his number here somewhere. The messier my son's divorce got, the more we communicated through lawyers, and it got to where I started hearing Mr. Brown's name in my sleep. Tom took about a minute and finally found Eric Brown's card with the number. I called the attorney's office. I didn't expect anyone to be there on a Saturday, but figured I'd leave a message. But luck was with me because not only was Mr. Brown there, but his secretary told me he had had a cancellation. He'd see me if I could make it to the office in 30 minutes. I told the kids that I had to go out for an hour or so and to behave. I then jumped in my car and made it to Mr. Brown's office in 20 minutes. Eric Brown appeared to be in his early or mid-30s. He was a good-looking man, a couple of inches shorter than me. He had deep blue eyes and a very welcoming smile. I had no doubt that Eric scored big points with the lady jurors. "What can I do for you today?" Eric asked after I had settled myself into a chair. "My wife told me yesterday that she is cheating on me with a younger man," I said, as I could feel my face flush with embarrassment and anger. I laid out as concisely as I could what had transpired the previous day. Eric sat taking notes as he shook his head. When I told him that my wife claimed to still love me, but she was going to keep sleeping with the guy, he stopped me. "Let me get this straight." Eric's eyes had darkened a little. "Your wife says she loves you but is going to keep screwing this poor lost soul?" My face flushed big time with embarrassment. I just nodded. "Okay, go ahead," Eric prompted. I went on to say that Anna had gotten angry with me when I refused to go along with her plan. I also admitted that I'd called her a 304 and a hooker. Painfully, I explained that Anna had laughed when I asked her how she would feel if I went out and got a woman. It was extremely painful and embarrassing to admit how Anna belittled me as a man and told me I'd never be able to find a woman that would want me. Not only that, but she promised she would ruin me if I tried to divorce her. "She actually said all that to you?" Eric asked in a voice that was filled with incredulity. "No offense, Mr. Wilson, but your wife is either one of the most callous persons ever, or she has some serious mental issues." "None taken," I sighed. "I think so myself." Then I explained how she had left the kids at her lover's house yesterday when we had our argument, and they spent the night there. Eric's head snapped up for a second, and he smiled. Then he put his head down and wrote something. "Okay, now for the 50,000 question. What do you want to do?" Eric asked as he looked up and steepled his fingers. I thought for a moment and then answered, "I can't live with the situation the way it is. I don't know if I can get past this, but for sure I don't want to get destroyed in a divorce, and I don't want to lose my kids." Eric shook his head in sympathy. That seems to be the new manner with women who are facing divorce because of their bad behavior. But rest assured, I'm going to bust my butt to limit any damage she can do to you. If you do divorce, you'll wind up with at least 50 of your joint assets. I will warn you that the courts don't give a tinker's damn about infidelity. So I'm going to have to pay alimony and child support, I said, much deflated despite Eric's assurance. It seemed like I was going to be taken to the cleaners. Yes, that is a possibility, but that's why we have to strike now and strike hard, Eric said as he studied his notes. Right now, your wife has abandoned your marital house, and worse than that, she took your children to her lover's place and left them unattended. That's a big no-no with some of the courts. You currently have custody of your kids, and I think we can keep it that way. I'm going to try and get an emergency restraining order against your wife, which will allow you to remain in the house at least temporarily. And the longer you are there, the stronger your case gets for primary custody. If we can get that, you won't have to pay child support. Does your wife work? Yes, part-time at the hospital. Anna works a shift on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I answered. And then a thought came to me, which I voiced. That's probably where she met this bozo. Eric agreed and then asked how much she made. I explained that she made about $22,000 a year. I, on the other hand, made about $75,000. I have to ask a crucial question, and I want you to think hard about it, Eric said as he looked directly at me. Do you still love her? Do you want to try to work things out? I put my head down and stared at the floor for a long time. When I looked up, I couldn't help it. Tears were streaming down my face. I nodded, but then added, I do love her, but I can't accept the situation as it is. She demeaned her husband and broke her vows. I am done with her. I just want a divorce. Last question. Eric turned the sheet of paper on his pad to expose a clean one. As best you can, tell me what assets you guys have. I thought for a moment as I mentally ran down what assets we had. Then I explained, as a rough estimation, we had about $3,000 in our checking account. Also, we had $40,000 in a savings account and a CD worth $200,000 plus interest. I also explained that I had about $140,000 in my 401k. Anna had slightly less accumulated in a retirement plan from when she worked full-time at the hospital. Even though she hadn't worked as long as I had, I explained that the hospital benefits package was generally better than mine. However, surprisingly, my company offered a better health care plan, so we used that for the family. I thought for a moment and then mentioned that we had 2 cars, which were in both our names. We, of course, had our house. However, we only bought this particular house a few years ago and had maxed out the loan. There wasn't much equity in it. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Eric looked like a man ready to go into battle. The first thing is for you to go draw out 1/2 of what you have in savings, checking, and the CD. Then I want you to put that money into a separate account in your name only. I can't do anything with the CD because it's in both our names, I explained. I can't cash that in without Anna's signature. No problem, Eric said as he began running numbers on his calculator. Take $20,000 out of the savings account, then pay as many bills for your house as you can from the checking account. Cancel any joint credit cards you have and use the joint checking account to pay them off. Then apply for a new credit card in your name only. I still have a credit card that I got before we were married, I said. However, I don't use it much because our joint card gives us money back. Even better, Eric smiled. You won't have to apply for a new card. Eric quickly scribbled onto a notepad a list of instructions and handed it to me. Right now, I want you to go out to my secretary and tell her to call Taylor Locksmith for you. You give them the address and have all the locks changed in your house, then come back in here, and I'll fill you in on our next steps. Miss Carlson had Taylor Locksmith on the phone quickly, and I gave them the address and was told they'd be out around noon. I then went back into Eric Brown's office. Eric was just getting off the phone when I sat down. We're in luck. According to the clerk, if I fax my paperwork in today, we'll be assigned Judge Johnson. Why is that lucky? I asked, confused. He hates cheaters, Eric answered with a smile. He's an old-fashioned Bible Belt judge, and he hates spouses that cheat, be they men or be they women. Trust me, that works big in our favor. If he hadn't been available, I probably would have had to do a little more tap dancing, but I'm sure we would have gotten what we want. However, Judge Johnson was a good friend of my father's, I know for sure he won't be pissed if I call him at home. Eric stood up at that point and offered me his hand. I shook it gratefully. Before you head home, Eric instructed me, I want you to head out and get your bank stuff done. I'm going to prepare a petition for an emergency restraining order on your wife. She won't be permitted in your house or within 500 feet of you or your children. She's currently staying with her lover, and we know she's left your kids with him. That should help greatly with the restraining order. Weeks or months down the road, the order might be kicked out, but by then you should be firmly established in the family residence as the primary caregiver. By Friday, you'll have your wife served with divorce papers. Then we're going to have to sit back and see what your wife wants to do. For the first time since Anna had laid her little bomb on me, I felt like I had taken back my life and part of my dignity. The bank wasn't particularly busy, so I was able to get a cashier's check quickly for my share of the money and close our one joint credit card. They told me there was a balance of $480 on it. I paid the balance off from the checking account, then I paid the mortgage 2 months ahead. That took up another $2,200. There wasn't much left in the checking account. With a cashier's check in hand, I went down the street to another bank and opened up a checking and savings account in my name only. With that done, I headed back home. When I got there, I found the kids watching television, so I loaded them into the car. When we rolled up to my in-laws, I saw Jack coming around the corner of his house from his workshop. He waved and headed back around the house. The kids piled out and headed after their grandfather. Once inside, Martha greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. A minute later, Jack came in, and after washing his hands, he came out to greet me. I'm sorry I have to tell you this. I apologized immediately. This is hard for me to say. I took a deep breath and continued. Anna is having an affair, and I'm filing for a divorce. I don't believe you, Jack said sharply. Anna isn't the type of woman. What proof do you have? She told me, I said softly as tears started to slide down my face. At that point, the back door opened and the kids came trooping in. Please stay outside for a few minutes, I told the children. Why? Bobby asked. Because I'm telling you to, I said more sharply than I meant to. At that point, Bobby saw the tears on my face and he turned immediately, pushing his siblings back out the door. She told you? Martha asked in disbelief. Yes, I said firmly, and a whole lot more. I then recounted the story of the previous evening, including the part where she was having sex, and it was good. Also, I told them about how she said to me if I divorced her, she'd ruin me. And finally, I recounted how she didn't think any other woman would want me. They were shocked, and Jack was angry. I still don't believe it. I'm going to call her and put the call on speakerphone. After dialing his daughter's number and activating the speaker, Jack put the phone on the coffee table. Hey, Daddy, Anna answered brightly. What can I do for you? Dave is here right now, Jack said, and immediately asked the question, Are you having an affair? There was a long pause, then Anna demanded, What did he say? He said you were having sex with another man and that you were in love with this guy. It's complicated, Daddy, she pleaded. I'm trying to help this man. He suffered a terrible tragedy and I'm trying to help him. Jack's face got bright red, and through gritted teeth he asked, Are you having sex with him or not? We've had sex, but I still love Dave. I just can't abandon this man right now. I love him also. I was totally stunned by Anna's father. She had always been a daddy's girl, and I just assumed that Jack would make excuses for her. Anna, Jack's voice was a bit strangled at this point. I never thought my daughter would ever become an immoral woman. Daddy, please, was all that was heard as Jack pushed the disconnect button. A moment or two later, the phone began to ring again, and Martha went to answer it. Leave it alone, Jack commanded, but Martha snatched it up and tried to answer anyway. Jack grabbed the phone out of her hand and threw it against the fireplace. I said, leave it alone, he screamed at his wife. She was totally shocked by her husband's anger and backed up. I was even more shocked. Dead silence filled the room as Jack and Martha were trying to process what they had just learned. Finally, Jack came over to me and hugged me. Dave, I am so sorry. I don't even know what to say. I can't believe our daughter has done this to you. Anything that we can do to help you, we will. And I mean anything at all. We will be there for you and the kids. I'll have Martha talk to our daughter later and let you know how that comes out. Right now, I'm too angry to talk to her. After that, I had to leave so I could get back to the house for the locksmith. After herding the kids into my car, I hugged Jack and Martha and invited them for dinner where we could talk more about my problem. On the way home, Jessica burst into tears. "Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Where did you hear that?" I demanded. "From me," Bobby said defiantly. I snuck back into the house and listened. I figured it was something bad. I just didn't figure it was that. I sighed and realized they had a right to know what was going on, but then the question was how to tell my kids about their mother without causing too much damage. Damn Anna? Her selfishness was hurting the kids. I bet she never thought about that when she was climbing into bed with her new man. "Unfortunately, it seems that your mother and I will be getting a divorce," I said softly. "But why?" Sammy asked as he started to cry. "Your mother has fallen in love with another man," I said simply. "You mean she's having sex with another man?" Jessica said between her tears. "I hate her. She's a total witch." "Jessica, don't say that about your mother," I admonished my daughter. But my words were hollow, as those were my exact feelings right now. The locks were changed, and none too soon. 10 minutes after the locksmith van left, Anna came roaring into the driveway. "You had to tell my parents, didn't you? I'm sure that you told them that I'm a 304 and a hooker," Anna screamed. "I thought you loved me, Anna," I said sadly. "I do love you with all my heart, but I will never accept that you're going to be screwing some other guy. And you have no idea how much you hurt me when you told me that I was just an ugly middle-aged guy that no other woman would ever want to be with. In essence, you told me you're doing me a favor by staying with me. Your pity love I can do without. Not only did you do that, but you threatened to ruin me, yet you dare to tell me you love me? You really need to take a good hard look at yourself, Anna. People who love each other don't do things like that. As for telling your parents, if you're so convinced that what you're doing is right, then it shouldn't matter that your parents know." Anna looked stricken after I laid my accusations on her. "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say those things," she tried to apologize. "I was just angry at the moment because you called me a 304 and a hooker. Truly, Dave, to call your wife and the mother of your children those names? You promised to love, honor, and cherish me. Shame on you. If you truly loved me, you would accept the situation. I'm not leaving you for him. I just love him also, and I'm trying to help him. He's much younger than me and will eventually move on." "Anna," I said, shaking my head slowly, "if you're going to quote our wedding vows, you should include the part where you promised to forsake all others, and to remind you that a married woman does not go out opening her legs for young men just because they're bowing hurt. Besides, I have accepted the situation that you were damaged goods, and I am not going to have you in my life anymore. Like you said, accept it. I knew they would take her on full time. There was always a shortage of nurses, and she was an excellent nurse." Sometime after the hearing, the DNA results arrived in the mail. It took me almost half a day to get up the courage to open the envelope. When I finally did open it and read the report, my heart was filled with pure happiness for the first time since this mess had started. My kids were truly mine. I reread the report several times to reassure myself that it indeed confirmed that I was the biological father to my kids. Then I wondered what I would have done if the report had said that one or all of my kids weren't mine. In an instant of clarity, I realized that I would love them the same no matter what. I even thought that for the sake of my kids, would I be willing to forgive all if Anna would just leave that man and come home? The answer was no. She would never be able to put proper values in my kids. She was a bad influence, and I needed to keep her away from them. I used up all of my personal days and my vacation time so I could stay home with the kids. When that ran out, thankfully, Anna's parents were willing to watch them. Jack and Martha were still refusing to talk to their daughter until she came to her senses. Jack said she called 3 or 4 times a day for about a week. Then Jack blocked her number. The visitation schedule was left up to Anna and me to work out. Actually, that meant that our attorneys would communicate what we wanted. Finally, it was agreed that Anna could visit Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 6:00 and 7:00 in the evening. Martha volunteered to supervise. However, I insisted that I be there for the first visit. I wanted Anna and Martha to know precisely what the rules would be. On the first Monday, a car parked in the street, and Anna got out. I didn't recognize the car, but quickly realized that it must be her lover's car. Anna walked up to the house nervously and smiled tentatively at us both. "Hello, Dave. How are you, Mother? It's good to see you." "Anna, you have to leave," I snapped at her. "The judge told you that your lover wasn't allowed within 500 feet of this house." Horror spread over her face. But he was just dropping me off." "Anna, are you brain dead or what?" I was furious. "The judge was quite clear, no lover here. Tell that a-hole to leave now, and I won't tell the judge." Anna nodded her head quickly and started back toward the car. Then a thought struck me. I walked out at an angle and pulled a pen from my pocket. As Anna was talking to her lover, I copied the license plate number down. Then I returned to the porch as the car drove off. "Okay," he said, "that hell come back and pick me up." Anna was now defiant. "Well, tell him to meet you down the street because I don't want him anywhere near the house." Anna's face filled with anger. "Dave, I'm really getting tired of how you're treating me. You didn't have to steal the money from our checking account or cancel my credit card." "Anna, I didn't steal anything. The money that was taken from the checking account was used to pay off the credit card and then 2 mortgage payments. I wanted to be sure the kids had a place to stay while we sorted our situation out. As to canceling the credit card, I didn't want to be stuck with any expenses you might charge while you're running around with your lover." Anna's face flushed red with, I assumed, anger and arrogance. "This is not an affair, and he isn't my lover, Dave. You're being an a-hole." Before I could say anything, Martha stepped forward and slapped Anna across the face. I was as stunned as Anna. Anna stepped back and stared at her mother. "Mother, bewildered? Anna, if you ever disrespect Dave again, I will tear that dress off you and beat your bum red. Now, if you want to see the kids, they're in the living room. I want a word with Dave, and then I'll be in. But be forewarned, if you do or say anything wrong, I will bodily throw you out of this house." Anna nodded meekly and went inside. "Dave, I apologize for my brain-dead daughter," Martha said sympathetically. "Thanks for sticking up for me," I said with real gratitude. And then I left. 2 weeks after that first hearing, as Eric had mentioned, the restraining order was lifted. But by that time, I had established that I was the primary caregiver, and I was allowed to stay in the house. Since Anna was still seeing her lover, Anna's child support remained, but she now could have unsupervised visits with the children in public. However, the judge admonished her that she couldn't take them to her lover's house, and he couldn't be with her when she had the kids. After 4 months of delay, our first real day in court to finalize the divorce came up. Before either of our attorneys could say a word, Judge Johnson asked if Anna or I had been to any counseling. The 2 attorneys admitted that there had been none. So the judge requested 8 sessions of marital counseling. Neither Anna nor I opposed the sessions. For me, I thought they were a waste of time, but I didn't want to piss off the judge. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel that Anna still believed that she could convince me, or maybe the therapist, that what she was doing was right. The first meeting with the therapist, Dr. Parker, proved to be precisely what I thought it would be. Anna spent most of the hour trying to explain that what she was doing was the right thing. I thought the therapist was going to swallow her eye teeth the first time Anna launched into her explanation. I believe it was Anna's arrogance that truly shocked Dr. Parker. In the second week, Dr. Parker began gently probing Anna's arguments. She asked if she thought it would be fair if I went out and started having sex with a woman. I cringed, waiting for the attack on my manhood, but this time it wasn't going to fly. Anna didn't answer right away, but I didn't care what she said. During the months that the divorce had dragged on, I had made some changes. I know it sounds vain, but when you've been told by the woman you love that you aren't good enough, you desperately want to prove her wrong. So I took the plunge and had hair transplant surgery. I didn't require a lot of it, but it still cost about $4,000. I was really back and forth about whether to have the hair procedure. I didn't know if I wanted to put up with the teasing. However, I was still using my vacation time, so I went for it. As near as I understood the procedure, my hair was buzz cut, then plugs were pulled out of the back of my head and planted in the front. I pretty much stayed in the house for the first week. My kids didn't know what to make of me and asked a bunch of questions. I just told them that it was a minor medical procedure. After about 10 days, I looked pretty much like my old self, and each week after that, the hair got longer and longer. After the procedure was mostly healed, I started an exercise routine. I also started to run. At first, I could only go about half a mile before I felt like my lungs would explode and my legs would collapse out from under me. Eventually, I got up to where I could run 10 miles. I also joined a gym. I changed the lunch and supper menu in our house so that we were all eating healthier. The kids groaned at first because I cut out the fast foods, cookies, ice cream, pizza, and many other junk foods. However, I did some searching on the internet and found some fun foods to cook. They loved it when I surprised them with something new that also tasted great. Some of the concoctions didn't turn out so great, but we laughed about those, scrapped them into the garbage, and made sandwiches. As it turned out, my kids loved helping me in the kitchen. It became a real family thing. Aside from the pain that still burned in my heart because of Anna's betrayal, I was beginning to feel better and better about myself. In fact, the first day back at work, I got a real ego boost. I checked in at the office to see what they had scheduled for me, and the receptionist, Julie, welcomed me back with a strange look. I thought she was going to give me grief about my new hair, but she didn't. "Welcome back, Dave," she chirped, and then her eyes started studying me. "There's something different about you." I blushed a little. "Oh, I've been on a diet. I've lost 18 pounds. I want to lose maybe another 5. She laughed and nodded. "Well, it really suits you. If I wasn't married, I'd be all over you. Thanks for the ego boost, but according to my wife, I'm just a middle-aged man with no sex appeal. So much so, she's found herself a lover." I tried to make a joke out of it, but it came out flat. By now, everyone in the company knew about my plight. Storm clouds crossed over Julie's eyes. "Anna is an idiot. Either that or she has a screw loose. You're a great guy, Dave, and there are plenty of women out there who would be thrilled to have you. Don't let Anna get in your head." That was the best shot in the arm I'd gotten in months. Suddenly, I didn't feel like such a loser. Dr. Parker asked my wife again, "Anna, how would you feel if Dave had come home and told you that he was sleeping with another woman?" As I mentioned, I was waiting for Anna to attack my manhood, but she didn't. I did see her eyeing me during our first meeting. I guess she could no longer say that I had thinning hair and was overweight. That was another boost to my ego. Anyway, I just sat in my chair and waited as Anna seemed to be thinking about what to say. She couldn't very well say that I couldn't have another woman if she had another man. "I guess if he was trying to help that woman get over some tragedy," she said with arrogance, "I would be okay with it. What if he told you that he loved this woman and that the sex was very good?" "Again, I would accept it," Anna insisted. "However, he would have to assure me that the children and I would be taken care of." The session continued on like that, with Dr. Parker trying to get Anna to see that her position was really ridiculous, but Anna refused to budge. As I feared, these sessions were just a waste of time. Anna was just going to use them to try to convince me that she was right. That was never going to happen. And as it was, the initial shock of what Anna was doing had begun to wear off. It's a funny thing about love, if it isn't nurtured, it begins to die. By the third week, something had changed. Anna came into the session much subdued and said little. Mostly, she just listened. Whatever had changed, it had set Anna back a bit. Maybe she wasn't as arrogant now because Dr. Parker was calmly and compassionately challenging her entire premise at every point. I also saw Anna checking me out when she didn't think I'd notice. I continued to work out and lost a few more pounds. I'd even begun doing a lot of work in the yard, which had given me a great tan. A couple of months before the therapy sessions had been ordered, I made another change. I was becoming dissatisfied with my job. Oh, I loved fixing cars, and not just the engines. I got tremendous satisfaction doing bodywork. I had been fixing old cars up since I was 14 years old. I could do it all. Now I saw owning my own business as a means to being able to spend more time with my kids. I talked it over with Jack and he agreed to help me. I wanted to set up my own shop and start building a business, but I couldn't just quit my job and do it. I didn't have the money to carry me until the business would sustain us. We'd starve before I could make a go of it. However, since Jack's farm was also in an industrial zone, he agreed to let me start my business in his workshop. Actually, Jack's tinkering shop had once been a barn for horses that he had converted. There was plenty of space for Jack and me. If I got the business established, Jack agreed to lease me a piece of land on the road to build my own building. I spent time at work studying how they had things set up. The dealership was basically set up to handle a higher volume than I was anticipating. They did a little body work at the dealership location, but much of it was subbed out. With this in mind, I scaled down what I needed in terms of tools and equipment. One thing for sure, I needed to build a paint booth. Jack was not only okay with that, but actually helped me construct it. I spent the savings I had liberated from our joint savings plus a small loan from Jack to finance the venture. I started part-time, mostly on the weekends and evenings. It was fun and the kids would come out many times to watch or even help. I really enjoyed teaching Bobby how to do things. Even Jessica got her hands dirty and loved to tell her girlfriends how she helped change out an engine or helped paint a Corvette. That also made her more interesting to the boys at school. I got business by word of mouth, and soon I was wondering if I shouldn't strike out full-time. That decision actually came to a head when I was told that they needed me to work over the weekend to get some backup work out. I couldn't do it because I had customers of my own that I needed to take care of. I figured I was going to get fired when I went in to tell Tom that I couldn't work because I had my own business obligations. "Got a minute, Tom?" I asked as I stuck my head into his office. "Sure, Dave," he waved me in. "I'm glad you're working this weekend. We've got 44 cars coming in this Friday that have been sold and need to be gone over from top to bottom. We have to get them out by the end of the month." I winced a little when he told me that. Most people don't realize that the factories have special incentives for dealerships. If they sell a certain number of cars in a month, they get a discount off the invoice. For instance, the factory could say if you sell 300 vehicles this month, we'll take 150 off your cost. That's a $45,000 saving. That money is in the owner's pocket, but if the dealer only sells 299, they get nothing. This was a big deal to the dealership. "That's just it, Tom," I said, and could immediately feel the sweat dripping down my back. "I can't work this weekend. I sort of have started my own business on weekends, and I've got stuff I need to get done." "I'm sorry, Dave," Tom said curtly, "but if you can't work this weekend, I may have to let you go." "I understand, Tom," I said with resignation. "I just hope there are no hard feelings. I have been trying to build up a business of my own. I want to spend more time with my kids and make a little extra money for their college funds. I'll clean out my locker." "I hate to lose you, Dave," Tom said sadly. "Tell me about your business. Where are you located and what kind of jobs are you doing?" I explained that I had set up my operation on my father-in-law's property and told him what equipment and tools I had. Actually, I was set up to do just about any kind of car repair, including body work. "Go get yourself a cup of coffee and then come back here," Tom said as he reached for his phone. I didn't want any coffee, so I went to my locker and put all my stuff in a box. Losing this job meant that it was going to be slim pickings for a bit. The kids would have to be put on Anna's health insurance plan, as I had taken her off mine. Still, I was confident that I could make it. I was turning away almost as much business as I was taking in. Tom motioned me into his office when he saw me coming down the hall. "I've got a deal for you, Dave," he said excitedly. "If you will work this weekend, we'll reimburse you for any money you lose because your customers are unhappy." "No," I shook my head. "I couldn't do that to my customers? Dave, hold your horses." "I'm not done," Tom said as he slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was an independent contractor's agreement. "I really need you this weekend. I also think you can convince your customers to wait a few days. If you can do that and your shop passes our inspection, we'll hire you as an independent contractor to do some of our bodywork. I was stunned but took the deal. After that weekend, I was basically working full-time at my business. Occasionally, I would go into the dealership if they had a problem and I wasn't busy. Also, Jack started helping me part-time, and Martha agreed to do my books. I was now making more money than I ever had working for the dealership. The only thing that was still screwed up in my life was my marriage. After the 4th counseling session, I wanted to put an end to them. I was pretty much beyond caring what Anna was doing with her new love. Oh, don't get me wrong. It still stung when I would stop and think about the fact that my wife was with another man. But I wasn't stopping to think about it as often. It was in our 5th session that I decided I was going on the offensive. I figured if I attacked Anna hard enough, she might choose to put an end to these wasteful sessions. I decided to confront her on the most hurtful thing that she had said to me, that I was basically too ugly to attract another woman. When Dr. Parker asked if I had anything to say, I leaned into Anna. Anna, I've decided that you are not only a totally selfish person, but you're basically a very nasty person, I said with venom. How dare you tell the man you supposedly love that he is an ugly middle-aged man who no woman would ever want? You hurt me in a way that I don't think I'll ever get over. Oh God, Dave, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I'm so ashamed that I ever said that. If I could take it back, I would. I do love you, just not enough to give up your lover and keep your sorrows to yourself. You'll need them more than I do, I snapped back. Anna burst into uncontrollable sobbing. No matter what Dr. Parker or I said, we couldn't calm Anna down. Eventually, Dr. Parker called an end to the session but gave us homework to do before our next one. I wasn't looking forward to it because by now, I figured these sessions were absolutely a total waste of time. The homework was simply to answer a series of questions. Some of them I understood, like how is our relationship with our parents, how was our sex life. Some of the questions didn't make any sense to me, like what my favorite food and drink were, what kind of vehicle did I drive. But the one question really caused me to sit back and think. It was, if I could change one thing, what would it be? I had been working on this questionnaire the night after that last session, but I put it away after I read that question. I wanted to think about that one for a bit. The next day, I finally wrote that I wished I had been a better husband, so my wife wouldn't have stopped loving me. We turned the papers in at our next session, but Dr. Parker didn't even look at them. Instead, she started by asking if we had any questions, or if there was something that we'd like to discuss. I'd like to ask Anna a question, I said immediately. Dr. Parker nodded at me, and I turned to face my estranged wife. Anna, I don't see that we're getting anywhere with these sessions. You've made it consistently clear that you're not going to leave your friend Mike Adams, and that leaves no chance for reconciliation. Why don't we just stop this and get the divorce done? How do you know his name? Anna asked in shock. That first time you came over to visit the kids, I got his license number. After that, it wasn't hard to find out his name. But it doesn't really matter. I have no interest in getting back at him or even talking to him. I just don't care anymore. I want to move on. Anna looked up at me with the saddest eyes I think I've ever seen. I hated seeing her in pain, and I wanted to go over and hug her, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. So I continued, I know your lawyer hasn't been happy with the settlement I've offered so far. Well, I've told my attorney to offer some alternatives. I'm willing to give you more visitation with the kids. I'm also offering to pay you $800 a month in alimony for 3 years. I just want you out at any cost. I watched Anna for a reaction, but all I saw was just a terrible sadness. She had made it perfectly clear to me that she wasn't going to stop seeing the guy, and I couldn't and wouldn't accept my wife having sex with another man. For the life of me, I just didn't understand how she could possibly think that I would live with a situation like that. At this point, it didn't matter. I just wanted out. I decided to push to end this farce. I know that what you said about me was partially true. It did hurt like hell when you said it, and I did tell you that I didn't think I'd ever get over that. But as time goes on, I realize that I am getting over it. Anyway, as you can see, I've tried to fix myself up. I don't think that I'm the man you thought so little of when you took up with Mike. I've also started dating. After we divorce, you can take care of your gentleman friend for as long as you want. But I think it's time to end this, if for no other reason than so you can start to rebuild a relationship with your kids." With that, Anna burst into tears and fled the room. Dr. Parker looked as stunned as I was. Finally, she composed herself and told me that she wanted to see Anna by herself for the next session, and then me alone for the last session. With a sigh, I agreed. When Anna unloaded all this on me, I was furious and filled with hate. But now, months after the fact, I was just worn out. I could see the pain this whole thing was inflicting on not only me but Anna, her parents, and most of all, our children. I wanted that to stop. I also was no longer furious that Anna was having sex with some guy. When I arrived for my final meeting with Dr. Parker, I was not only happy that Anna wasn't there, but also glad that this would be the end of the counseling. "Dave, I want to commend you for your restraint through all these sessions," Dr. Parker began. "I know this entire situation has been unbelievably painful for you. After meeting with Anna last week, I think I finally understand what happened to your wife. I was now sitting on the edge of my chair. Finally, maybe I'd learn why Anna decided to destroy our marriage. Do you remember the homework I gave you?" she asked. I just nodded. I had forgotten about it and figured that it had been of little value in these counseling sessions. "The way you both answered one particular question surprised me," Dr. Parker said, as she pulled 2 pieces of paper from her folder. "The question was, if you could change one thing, what would it be? Do you remember that?" I nodded. "You answered that you wished you could have been a better husband so that your wife wouldn't have stopped loving you. When Anna heard that, she broke down and cried harder than ever. It took me quite a while to calm her down. I didn't know what to think, say, or do, so I just sat there. Dave, your wife never stopped loving you. Yeah, that's why she continues sleeping with Mike, because she loved me so much." Dr. Parker gave me a disapproving look, but then sighed. "Dave, what I discovered about Anna was that she was going through a severe midlife crisis. As the children were getting older, Anna felt her life slipping away from her. She is, and I suspect she has always been, a warm and caring person. Somewhere along the line, she found Mike, who needed her terribly. She confused her desire to be young again and Mike's terrible need for forgiveness over his wife's death for love." "That doesn't change anything," I protested. "She's still sleeping with Mike." "Actually, no, she's not, Dave." "Really? This was news to me. Then why didn't Anna tell me?" "I know this isn't going to change your feeling at this point, but you need to know the whole truth. Mike left town the same day that you told Anna that you were going to start dating and you just wanted to get on with the divorce. She figured that she had already lost you. I thought about that, but Dr. Parker was right. It didn't change my mind. There had been too much said and done to go back. I had my life on track now, and I wanted to move forward. I would never be able to trust Anna again, and I didn't want to live like that. But aside from anything else, I wanted it so the kids could hopefully start bonding with their mother again. Jessica's grades had slipped badly since this whole mess had started, and I was sure that she was still angry at her mother. Sammy had become sullen and withdrawn and was acting out in school. This was perhaps the worst consequence of Anna's actions. Sammy was no longer that happy-go-lucky kid. Bobby was handling it the best of all. He wasn't angry or sullen, but any time his mother's name came up in a conversation, he changed the subject. Maybe I'm wrong. Perhaps his reaction is worse than the 2 girls. I just don't know. "One last thing," Dr. Parker said as she pulled out the second piece of paper. "This is Anna's answer to the question about changing one thing. She wrote if she could change one thing, it would be that she never met Mike Adams. The divorce went through, and as per the agreement, Anna used to visit the kids on Wednesdays and Fridays. I made sure I'd take the kids out on Friday for dinner before Anna arrived. At first, our interaction was very formal and awkward, but then we started sharing a meal or two together with the kids. And then one evening, Anna asked me if she could stay the night. No, I answered with a chuckle. The bed in the spare room isn't all that comfortable. It's better if you just go back to your place. And next time, never think that I would be in the same room alone with you. As for Mike Adams, His story checks out to be not completely true. His wife died when she was driving away from him. She found him cheating on her, and she left in a rage. She was speeding and died in a car crash. Why did he leave town? I guess it was due to a severe beating that he took outside a local bar. 5 broken ribs, 1 busted kneecap, 5 missing teeth, and 2 busted nuts. I had to call in a favor with some friends. It was worth it. The beating will ensure that he is never going to be with any other woman, let alone please any. As for Anna, little by little, she was able to restore a loving relationship with her children. Or I should say that she restored a loving relationship with Jessica and Sammy. No matter what Anna did, there always seemed to be a distance between her and Bobby. I would have thought that Jessica would be the one to hold a grudge, but she was the first to fully embrace the return of her mother. Anna finally mended her fences with her parents. However, like Bobby, there was a slight coolness with her father. Anyway, most Sundays we would have dinner there like a family, but we weren't. Anna kept telling me how sorry she was for everything that had happened. I finally told her to please stop. I will never forgive her, and it's useless to try. Just to add on, I told her, "Oh, please, Anna, stop being so childish. I told you how things are going to be. I have no intention of arguing with you about it. The discussion is over. Accept it or don't, that's your choice. We are never getting back together again, even if you were the last woman on the planet and the fate of mankind depended on me making love to you. It'll pass." 3 years later, I got married. I married Jessica's teacher, and it was amazing how we met and how it all went down. It is a story for a different time, but what matters is that the kids love her and have accepted her as part of the family. Anna has still not accepted the fact that I have moved on. Well, I am not going to do anything about her. After all, the discussion was over. She either accepts it or she does not. Thank you for tuning in to this incredible story of betrayal and resilience. How would you handle discovering your spouse's affair? And do you believe people can truly change? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Now, I'm not one who usually spends time at spicy sites, but one November night a few weeks ago, I not only looked at the content but signed up for their premium membership. I figured it was 80 well spent. I was watching a live feed of a very hot woman as she was being banged from behind by a very good-looking, well-built guy. I have seen better stuff, but something about this scene really got to me. It was the woman hot housewife Jessica, they called her, but I knew her real name was Amanda. Amanda was my wife. Amanda was moaning rather loudly as the unknown hot guy was doing her. I could see from the expression of lust on her face that she was enjoying it immensely. I had witnessed that lust look firsthand many times. As I continued to watch, my prediction came true, and she let it go, shaking as she screamed out from the intense pleasure she was receiving. Pleasure House Spa was certainly a good name for the website because she was doing what nature intended, having hot sex and deriving the greatest of pleasure from it. When Amanda rolled over on the bed, laying there looking totally satisfied, he grinned and said, "Well, darling, that was pretty damn good. I bet your old man never makes you climax that good, does he, hot housewife Jessica?" Amanda grinned back at him and said without hesitation, "Well, Mark, that was pretty damn good for sure, as you say. But just so you know, no one lights me up like my husband. I have been with a few men, but no one ever makes me happy like he does. You are good, but he is fantastic. So don't quit trying harder." And she grinned at him again. Mark looked at her quizzically and asked, "Well, if he is so fantastic, why are you cheating on him by coming here and letting me do you?" She replied without losing her grin, "I didn't plan for it to happen, but I like to have sex, and I am glad you service me. I also do it because I can get away with it and he will never know. I actually love my husband with all my heart, and after 3 nights here I realize how much better he is than what I get here, and it makes me love him and appreciate him all the more." She laughed and added, "Actually, I probably am doing him a favor by coming here and doing this, so get over here and drill me some more. Like I said earlier, the 80 was money well spent because I was able to see what was going on with my loving wife for a lot less than surveillance equipment or private investigators would have cost me. You were probably asking yourselves how I got here, what transpired before that night to make me go to this site. It's a good question, and I guess the most honest answer would be a fluke, a rare piece of good fortune that turned my way. Not good fortune that my wife was screwing Mark, but good fortune in that I now knew she was cheating on me. Amanda and I have been married for just over 10 years. We first met when we were in middle school together. We grew up in a small town in central Ohio. She lived in town and I lived out in the country. Her father owned the largest dairy farm in the area, and my father owned the largest grain farm in the area. Because our parents did business together, it was natural that we would meet and go to school together and be friends. I won't bore you with the middle school crushes, the high school romance, or even the college scene. We both dated and, yes, bedded other people. We had not been exclusive with one another, but deep down I guess we always knew that we should be a couple. Oh yes, I was indeed the one who took her virginity, but along the way there were others for her and for me. It was in our junior year at Ohio State University that we decided to become exclusive, and sometime later I asked her to marry me. About a year and a half later, 1 week after we graduated, we were married. We both received degrees in business administration. Life was good, at least I thought it was good, until that night in November. Anyway, let me continue. 2 years ago, Amanda's parents retired and moved to Denver, Colorado. Amanda, her sister Lisa, and her 2 brothers, John and Paul, bought 51% interest in the dairy business from Dan Sr. He wanted to retain controlling interest for a few years to add his financial backing to their growth. Eventually, he would begin to decrease his interest until they owned it 100%. Lisa is married to a friend of mine, Kevin Brown, who also happens to be a dairy farmer. He operates a farm that is just a few hundred acres smaller than mine. We live quite close to each other and spend some good times with them. John and Paul manage the dairy business, and Amanda is their controller bookkeeper. Lisa also works at the facility, dealing with customers and processing dairy sales transactions, etc. It is a true family-run business with a few additional employees, mostly truck drivers and farmhands. During the peak of harvest season, they employ a few part-time workers also. I guess that is enough background, so I should continue with the sordid tale of how I discovered my wife screwing another guy online and what happened after that discovery. All 4 of the Brown children had spent a huge amount of extra time putting together the deal for the purchase of the interest in the dairy business from their father. I wasn't involved very much in it, but I knew that they had to bust their humps to get the deal done. There were bank meetings, there were meetings with the Ohio Department of Agriculture, there were meetings with insurers. All of them were burned out after the deal was done. Fortunately, this all took place during the winter, which was their slowest time of the year. For me, it was after harvesting time, so I didn't need Amanda on the farm as much as I would have during my 2 busy times of the year. She didn't actually do any of the farm work herself, but with 2,200 acres in corn and soybeans, both of those times are extremely busy for me, and I needed Amanda to run errands for me, etc. You get the picture. So since we were not busy, the girls, Amanda and Lisa, decided they wanted to take a few days and go to a spa to relax and unwind. They booked a 3-night getaway at an appropriately named spa called Heavenly Spas. I know I spoke of Pleasure House Spa, but that was the name on the website. The real name of the spa was Heavenly Spas. The girls came back so relaxed and rejuvenated that they decided to do it again that November after the planning season was well over the next year. They booked another weekend. It was during that weekend spa visit that I was viewing the video online. But how did I ever find it? Derek Miller, the field agent for the Ohio Department of Agriculture in our county, happened to stop by during a routine tour of his area of responsibility. Amanda and I had known Derek in college, and he asked about her. I mentioned that she was on a getaway at Heavenly Spas. Derek gave me a funny look and said that there was something funny happening there that maybe I would be interested in checking out. He said a cousin of his used to work at that spa as a masseuse and had told him some pretty wild tales about what happened there. He said they even had a website with a different name. He didn't recall the exact name, but thought it had something to do with pleasure. I asked him what he was talking about, and he cautiously said he didn't really want to go into it, but that I should check it out. Well, you don't know me, but I am an internet poker. I go online and poke around looking for interesting stuff and occasionally do hit spicy sites, but usually just other interesting stuff. So that evening in question, I did some poking around and I found Pleasure House Spa. It didn't take long to find the live feed and the game was on. Now I can tell you all about what happened that night, but why? You know what happened. I was hurt. I cried. I yelled. I got angry. I got depressed. And I got everything else a man would get when he found out his wife cheated on him. I soon found out that it wasn't the first time she had cheated either, because Pleasure House Spa had an archive folder, and I was able to find videos from the previous 2 visits, as well as videos of the 2 previous nights Amanda and Lisa had been there. With the premium membership, I was able to download each of the videos for an additional $20 each. I downloaded the 2 videos from their first visit, 3 from their second visit, and 3 from the current trip. I downloaded 8 videos in all at a cost of $160. So for a grand total of $240, I had all the evidence I would ever need to divorce my wife. I just didn't have a plan yet how I was going to do it, but I knew it had to start right away. I wouldn't wait a month or 2 weeks or even 1 week to bring it about. As far as I was concerned, the quicker we parted company, the better. She had screwed another man a minimum of 8 times, and I had video proof. Actually, she had screwed at least 2 different men, Mark and Steve, on the videos I had downloaded. I didn't know, and I didn't even care if there had been more. 2 men and 8 times was more than enough. I made a few copies of the videos on DVDs and put them in a very safe place. When my father built the house, he had a wall safe installed with access through a hidden panel in the built-in bookcase in the office. Once the copies were safely hidden away, I deleted all references to Pleasure House Spa on my computer and deleted all of the original files on my computer. Other than the DVD copies, there was no longer a trail to what I had as evidence. When all of that had been done, I got my cell phone and sent a text message to Amanda on her cell phone. Amanda, this is Jake. I happen to know exactly what you were doing at Heavenly Spas, and I have evidence to back it up. Don't bother to come back to the house. If you decide to come back here at all, this house is no longer your home, and soon I will no longer be your husband. We are finished. My lawyer will be in touch with you in the next few days. Arrangements can be made at that time for you to come and pick up your personal possessions. Apparently, Amanda had turned her cell phone off and never got my text message until the next morning, because I never heard a thing from her that night. But early the next day, my phone started ringing. I could see by caller ID that it was Amanda, so I didn't pick up. Soon I heard her leaving me a voicemail. Jake, what in the world are you talking about? Honey, I have no idea what is going on there, but why on earth would you text me such awful stuff? Lisa and I are packing up now, and I will be home in a couple of hours. I don't know what you were thinking I did, but you are wrong. I will see you when I get there, and then we can talk. I love you, Jake. A very short time later, my cell phone rang again, and again I didn't answer it, but let it go to voicemail. Again, it was the same message, almost to the exact words. I wondered if she had written down what she was going to say. When I didn't answer that call, it didn't take long for the text message to come through. She was a broken record because she repeated almost verbatim what she had said in the 2 telephone messages. Since I didn't have to actually talk to her, I decided to send a short reply back to her by text, so she knew I got her messages but chose not to talk to her. I simply texted her, I wonder if Mark would have any idea about what in the world you are talking about, honey, if I asked him. Why don't you have him call me and I will ask him? What I said about not coming back to the house, I mean. Do not think you can come home. You cannot. It is over, Amanda. I didn't get any more texts, but I did get another phone call from Amanda later that afternoon. She left a message, Jake, we need to talk. I am staying with Lisa until you and I talk and put this awful misunderstanding behind us. Please call my cell phone and talk to me. That was Monday afternoon, and I did not return the call. The next morning, I went to my bank and arranged for a second safe deposit box in my name only. I put one copy of the DVDs in the box along with the original of my prenuptial agreement. I had made arrangements for a meeting with my lawyer at 11:00 a.m., so I had made an additional copy of the prenuptial agreement. He had one, I was sure, but I didn't want to take a chance that there would be any problem. At the appointed time, I walked into my lawyer's office, and there sat Amanda. She looked up at me when I walked in, and I could see that she looked like hell. It was obvious that she had been crying, her hair was unkempt, and I could see that she had not had much sleep because there were dark circles under her eyes. She always got that way when she was overtired. Amanda said to me, "Jake, we have to talk about this." I asked, "How did you know I was going to be coming here?" She said, "Richard called me when you made the appointment." At that time, Richard Warner, my attorney, came out into the reception area and asked us both to come into his office. My anger was seething beneath the surface, so I said, "No, Richard, we will not be going into your office together. You have broken my trust by calling Amanda, and I need a straight answer from you right this moment. Are you going to represent only me? You know, lawyers are supposed to be so damn smart, but this guy must have gotten shortchanged in the distribution of brains because he said, 'No, Jake, if this continues, I will be representing Amanda.' It turns out he thought that the dairy business was a better client for him than my farm business was. It actually may have been because besides the dairy business, he had all of the Brown family members too. I had my opinion on that issue and felt that he would eventually realize the error of his thinking. Fine, Richard, please have all of my original documents in your possession and all copies of contracts and other paperwork of mine that you have available to me at 4:00 p.m. today. I will either stop by to pick them up or have a courier drop by to pick them up. I just want you to know that I have appreciated the work you have done for me in the past, but you are making a big mistake here, Richard. I will be seeking legal services elsewhere, and my new attorney will be contacting you as soon as possible." Amanda had still stood quietly during this entire exchange, but now pleadingly asked, "Jake, why won't you talk to me now to clear this up?" "Because, Amanda, it is obvious that Richard values you greater as a client than he values me, and I will not be having this conversation with you without legal representation, and I wouldn't trust him." Richard piped up, "Jake, you know I have always been straight with you, so you have nothing at all to fear." "Oh, Richard, I have lots to fear. You cannot serve two masters, so they say, and it is clear whom you have chosen to be the master in this. Besides, you have already proven you can't be trusted when you called Amanda in here. Goodbye, my attorney will be in touch." I could hear Amanda begin to cry again when I walked out the door. Now I had to find a new attorney. Well, I knew that David Jones was a very able attorney and highly competitive with Richard Warner. I figured that might be a good choice, but I wouldn't dive in without doing some checking. Attorneys, accountants, bankers, and insurance agents are people you get into bed with, and you better really know what you have before you pull back the covers. I realized that attorney-client relationships are most crucial because they almost always have privileged information. I knew a few people who used David, so I called the law office and asked them if they had a list of references. The secretary said they did have a list and gladly agreed to email it to me. There were 4 friends of mine on the list, so I decided to stop in to see 3 of them and get their opinion about the work that David did. It really didn't take a whole lot of time because each of the 3 quickly gave me a glowing recommendation for David. There was no doubt in my mind that he would do a good job for me. I didn't go see the 4th friend because it was Kevin, and I didn't want to get him involved since he is married to Lisa, Amanda's sister. I called David's office a second time. I gave my name and asked if I could make an appointment to see him after 4:00 p.m. The receptionist told me that he was busy until 4:30 p.m., but she would check with him and see if he could see me after that. I realized that there was a chance that he would not see me, but I had to try. When she came back on the line, she said that Mr. Jones would indeed see me at 4:30 p.m., but it would have to be a short meeting, as he had other obligations in the evening. I agreed to that and told her I would be there shortly before 4:30 p.m. She said, "I look forward to seeing you at that time then, Mr. Hagan. By the way, my name is Samantha. I am David's wife." At 4:00 p.m., I stopped at Richard's office to pick up my paperwork, and they didn't have it all copied yet. It was obvious that they had been stalling, hoping that I would change my mind. I have to tell you that I blew up big time and told them that I had better have every piece of my legal paperwork in the next 15 minutes, or my new attorney would be contacting them. They asked me who that might be, and I told them they would find out soon enough. Well, that office was bustling after that. I think they had 3 people making copies all at one time, and 20 minutes later I had every sheet. I still had time to get to David's office by my appointment time, so I didn't raise any more stink about being late on my deadline. I had my meeting with David, and he agreed to become my personal and business attorney. I asked him if I could leave all of the paperwork I had obtained with him for safekeeping, and he agreed to put it in his vault until we had the time to go over all of it together. We set an appointment for the next day, Tuesday, at 9:00 a.m. to go over all of the paperwork and set a plan for my divorce. When I walked out of the office at 5:30 p.m., I smiled at Samantha and asked, "Well, Samantha, am I in trouble? Or are your evening plans still okay?" She grinned back at me and said, "You did just fine, Mr. Hagan. Our evening will go just as planned. I wish all of our clients were as prompt as you have been, but please call me Sam from here on. Thank you, Sam, and you please call me Jake." The next morning, we reviewed all of my business paperwork and contracts. I can't discuss it here, though, attorney-client privilege and all that. I can tell you, though, that David thought that everything seemed to be in order from the business perspective. We broke for lunch, and David and Sam invited me to join them at the local diner. I agreed and met them there since I wanted to stop at my bank before we resumed in the afternoon. They were a charming couple, and we had a very enjoyable lunch together. I found out that they were both a few years ahead of me in school. David had said that he actually was in the same grade as John Brown, but that they were not close. I guess they were both too competitive with each other. I found out that they had been married about 10 years and had 2 daughters, ages 6 and 3. They showed me pictures, and the 2 little ones were very pretty. They took after their mom, too. I could see both had beautiful smiles, just like Sam. I think that lunch did me a world of good. It made the relationship with my new attorney much easier to transition into. But the negative to the lunch was that I realized that my life partner wasn't there with me anymore. David and Sam were so awesome together and reminded me so much of how it had been with Amanda before I found out about her cheating. It just made me sad, and a couple of times I know my eyes missed it up. David didn't notice a thing, but I could see that Sam had noticed and got a concerned look on her face. After lunch, I stopped at the bank and made a few changes to protect my assets. I also picked up a $5,000 check payable to David Jones' law offices. It would be a retainer for the work they would do for me in the near future. David hadn't asked for anything yet, but I knew he would appreciate the effort. I arrived back at the office at 1:30 p.m. to resume our meeting. Sam told me that David was on the phone, and she took me to the small conference room we had been meeting in. She asked me if I wanted any coffee or anything else, and I told her no, that I was fine. She sat down beside me in one of the chairs and reached out her hand to me. "David didn't tell me what's going on, Jake, but I can guess what this afternoon is going to be about based on your reactions at lunch. I see you are wearing a wedding ring, so I am guessing it has to do with your wife. If you will allow me, I am going to ask David to let me sit in here with you this afternoon while we deal with whatever you have to tell us." I was on the verge of breaking down again, so I just nodded my agreement. My anger had tamed for the time being, and I guess the emotions of the hurt were stronger now. It would be good to have a woman close by with the sensitivity they have. I realized I just might need the sympathetic presence of having Sam there in the afternoon meeting. I told the entire story about discovering Amanda's cheating. I know I broke down a couple of times, and Sam stepped in to sympathize and comfort me. Once I regained control of my emotions, I informed them of my intentions. Unless something comes out to change my mind, I plan to file for divorce and to enforce the terms of the prenuptial agreement. David and I reviewed the prenuptial agreement in detail. The terms are pretty much as follows. I keep 100 of all farm assets, real estate, and personal property. Amanda keeps 100 of dairy business assets. Amanda gets 50 of our financial assets if there has been no infidelity. If there has been infidelity, Amanda only gets $25,000 for each year if she has been unfaithful, not 50. Jake only gets $25,000 for each year if he has been unfaithful, not 50. Household personal property is a 5,050 split regardless of the circumstances. Jake, I need you to show me the proof of infidelity, David asks. No, David, I have the proof, but I will not show it to you now or to anyone else for that matter unless we are forced to go to court over this. Then I will show it to the judge. David insists. Jake, I need to see it to be sure we have a case of infidelity. I need to be sure. David, you need to trust me. I have the proof. But I loved Amanda, and I don't want anyone seeing what I have seen unless it is absolutely necessary. Sam touched David on the arm and nods her head. Yes, David reluctantly agreed. During the next couple of days, Amanda called me several times and left me messages. I never took her calls and deleted the messages without listening to them. David called me and said we have set a Thursday meeting with you, Amanda, and Richard at 10:30 a.m. David and I drove over to Richard's office to meet with him and Amanda. When we arrived, I saw that Amanda's car was already in the parking lot, so we went on into the office. Richard's receptionist ushered us back to a small conference room where we waited only a couple of minutes before Richard and Amanda came in. Amanda looked a lot better than she had when I saw her at Richard's office earlier in the week. Obviously, she had fixed herself up for the meeting because she was, in fact, beautiful. I did everything I could do to keep my feelings hidden because I didn't want her to see how my heart ached for her. She smiled at me and said, Jake, I hope we can finally talk and get this misunderstanding behind us. I miss you and want to come home. I didn't respond to her because I felt my voice would crack if I said anything at the moment. I needed to get my emotions under control. It wouldn't be easy, but I had to do it. David spoke up. We are here to discuss the divorce proceedings for the dissolution of Jake and Amanda's marriage. I believe we should open up the discussion, giving each party time to express their thoughts and opinions about how this young couple goes forward in their lives. Richard was nodding and interjected, My client feels this is a total misunderstanding and welcomes the opportunity to clear the air and talk to her husband. I have been having a hard time controlling my emotions, but Richard did me a big favor. He ignited the anger in me again, and right now it was at the boiling point. I knew I could control the anger, and that made it simple to also control my emotions, my hurt and disappointment in Amanda. I would be okay. I said, That is fine with me, Richard. Your client can talk to her husband. I looked across the table at Amanda and said, Amanda, here are some facts. When we married, we signed a prenuptial agreement, and we modified it 2 years ago when you bought into your father's business. I have brought along copies of the modified agreement for all parties to have. Amanda looked on in a bit of shock. She quietly said, But Jake, I don't want a divorce. I want to be your wife. Why can't we just get past this misunderstanding and go home and be happy again? I pretty much glazed over that comment and continued. Our intention was to protect individual interests while still reaping the benefits of our marriage. Originally, the prenuptial agreement was to protect assets held in my family over several generations. Then, when you bought into your father's business, it was to also protect the same assets long held in your family. In the event of a divorce, our agreement clearly spells out that I will retain 100 of the assets from my family, and you will retain 100 of the assets from your family. All debt pertaining to those business assets will accrue to the business, and the other party will have no responsibility. Because we jointly work to provide our marital assets, our agreement calls for certain monetary and property splits depending on the circumstances of our divorce. As this document clearly shows, you are entitled to all of your personal items, including clothing, jewelry, your car, and other items that a man would have no interest in. Likewise, I have the same entitlement on my side. All other non-farm personal property, such as furniture, artwork, electronics, etc., is to be split 5,050. Farm personal property, such as grain bins and machinery and equipment, etc., is to remain 100 mine as it is an integral part of the farming operation. The monetary distribution to you in the event of a divorce is 50 of financial assets if there has been no infidelity. There are two exceptions to that distribution in the event of infidelity, as you can see in the document. In the event that you divorce me for infidelity, the distribution would be that I get only $25,000 per year or $200,000, not 50. In the event that I divorce you for infidelity, the distribution would be $25,000 per year or $200,000 total, not 50. I'm going to ask you some questions, Amanda. How you answer the questions will determine whether I pursue the divorce and on what grounds. Obviously, that will also then determine the outcome of any monetary distributions. If our marriage is going to have any chance to survive, Amanda, you must answer each question with perfect honesty. If you refuse to answer or I catch you in any lie, it is over. Is that understood? Are you willing to do that to have a chance to save our marriage? Amanda had been sitting there looking totally stunned by my recitation of our prenuptial agreement. She quickly snapped out of it and responded, "Yes, Jake, I will answer your questions and I will answer them honestly. I love you, and I want our marriage to survive. I will do anything to get you to stop this and allow me to come back home. Amanda, I would like to tape record these questions. Is that acceptable to you?" This time she hesitated a bit and turned to Richard, who had pretty much remained silent up until this point. Richard, being a typical lawyer, said, "Amanda, I would advise against that, but you do what you feel is important to you." With that, my lawyer David piped up, "Well, Amanda, I agree with Richard and would advise you or my client to not tape this, but it is Jake that has to be convinced here, not Richard or I, so do what you feel is right." Amanda said, "I will do anything to get past this misunderstanding, so yes, go ahead and tape this. I'm okay with taping any conversation between Jake and me." David and I had brought along a tape recorder, so we put it on the table where all voices would be picked up by the microphones. Amanda asked, "Jake, what are your questions?" "Amanda, I want to ask you if you have been faithful to me, but I want to ask it in 3 different time periods. The first time period is from the day we pledged to be exclusive with one another up until the day we were engaged. Were you faithful to me during that time period?" Amanda smiled and said, "Yes, Jake, I was faithful to you during that time period." She thought she was winning points now, but her smile was quickly turned to shock when I said, "Well, that is lie number 1. You couldn't even answer the very first question honestly. I should get up and walk out right now, but I won't yet. Are you telling me you didn't have sex with Larry Henson 2 days after we pledged exclusivity? Is that what you're telling me?" Larry was that kind of guy, Amanda. He had to brag, and he in fact bragged to me that you invited him over to your house on a Tuesday night when your parents were going to be gone and he screwed you silly on your own bed. Oh, and Amanda, he told me he didn't use a condom either. He grinned at me and said bareback is a lot more fun when you are a slut. His parting shot at me before he walked away was, "Jake, she really loved it, and I am certain that I will get lots of repeat performances in the future, probably even after you marry the slut." Now, you probably could say he made it all up, but strange as it seems, Lisa was nearby and happened to overhear it all. She walked over to me after Larry left and said, "Jake, Amanda loves you and she won't cheat on you again. She was just giving him a farewell sex. Please don't do anything stupid. And by the way, he lied. He did use condoms. I saw the packages in the trash the next morning. So you see, Amanda, you have already lied to me, but I can understand what you did even if I hated it. I am going to give you a pass on this lie, but there will be no more passes from here on. Tell me the truth or suffer the consequences. After that event, I didn't trust you, so I watched you like a hawk for the next 6 months. For that entire 6 months, you did nothing to arouse suspicions in me, so I asked you to marry me and gave you the ring you have on your finger for the time being. I knew you were probably hoping that would come quicker, but I wasn't ready to trust you yet, so you had to wait." Question number 2. During our engagement from that day, you got the ring until our wedding day. Did you cheat on me? Amanda never hesitated a second as she said, no, absolutely not. I knew what that answer was going to be because I said, well, I know that is true because, you see, I still didn't trust you totally. So I continued to observe you for that entire year until I felt I could trust you. I was almost certain you were faithful to me during that time. Richard, to his credit, asked if we could take a break. He wanted to confer with his client and give her time to regroup. He had noticed, like me, that during my tirade about Larry Henson, Amanda had gotten very emotional and was on the verge of breaking down. He wanted to give her a chance to compose herself before we continued. We, in fact, took a break for lunch, and David and I drove by his office and picked up Sam and went to the local diner for the Blue Plate special. Sam asked how it was going, and David said, I think Jake is doing fine. There hasn't been much come out yet, but he laid the groundwork for an honest answer for the marital period. If she admits all of it, he may still want to pursue the divorce, but he also may see that she truly wants to preserve their marriage. It will be a tough call, but I think he will be able to make it. Of course, if she lies, then Jake has to decide where to go from there. Sam looked over at me, and her woman's intuition kicked in, and I knew she saw my pain. I gave a weak smile and said, this is not an easy thing at all. Why on earth do people do such stupid things and cause so much pain in their own lives and in the lives of those who they love? She reached her hand over on top of mine and said, if we only knew, Jake, we could slap them before they could be so stupid. Of course, that got me to laugh, as did David. Even in this difficult time, I could laugh. I guess that is a testament to the resiliency of humanity. People grieve at funerals, but they also laugh. I guess people grieve at divorces, but can also laugh too. I smiled at Sam and said, thanks, Sam, I really needed that. She just nodded. Shortly after 1 p.m., we returned to Richard's office for the meeting with Amanda. Before I asked the next question, I reminded Amanda, you need to answer these questions with total honesty. If you lie in any way, it will be the end of this meeting and no hope at all for our marriage. Do you understand this? Amanda said, yes, I understand, and I will tell you the truth. Amanda, I asked, from the day we were married until this very moment, did you ever cheat on me? I saw the tears well up in her eyes, and I felt so badly for her because I knew how painful it must be for her, but I couldn't comfort her or let her off the hook. I needed so badly for her to care enough about our marriage that she would confess everything. I didn't know if I could stop this divorce or not. If she told me the total truth, I would know, however, that if she told the total truth, she cared enough to try to save our marriage. Yes, Jake, I did cheat on you, she responded. She dropped her head down onto her crossed arms on the table and just sobbed. I am so sorry, Jake. Can you ever forgive me? I asked that Richard and David leave the room because I had a few more questions for Amanda, and I didn't want to embarrass her in front of those other men. They both objected, but I insisted that David leave, and Amanda nodded to Richard that she wanted him to leave also. I had her confession that she had cheated on me on tape. It would be all I needed in a divorce hearing, and I didn't want the rest of my questions and her answers on tape, so I turned it off. Amanda, answer these questions. When, where, who, and why? She sniffled a few times. Oh, Jake, I am so sorry. It happened this weekend at Heavenly Spa. One of the masseurs named Mark is who I cheated with. I don't know exactly why it happened, Jake. I guess just passions of the moment would be the best way to describe the why. Lisa and I had been enjoying the day so much, and after a wonderful dinner, we each decided on getting a massage before we went to bed. My masseur was Mark. I was on the massage table in the room, lying on my stomach. Mark started the massage, and it felt so good. His hands were soft and yet strong. He worked the muscles in my arms and my shoulders and back. He worked from my feet up my legs. He even worked my inner thighs, but stopped short of becoming too intimate, if you know what I mean. Then he started working on my back and shoulders again, as I was still tense in those areas. I felt him untie my bikini top and pull the sides down. I have to confess it felt great, and I did nothing to stop him. At that moment, I had no idea I would get in over my head. With that, she started to cry again. "Oh, Jake, if I could go back, I never would have allowed it, and we wouldn't be where we are now. You have to believe me." Even though it was killing me to hear all this, I wanted to hear the story she was telling, not out of lust or a desire to get turned on, but because I wanted to know what she would tell me. "Go on, Amanda, tell me the rest. There's nothing more to elaborate on, we just had sex." I sat there for a moment, hoping she would go on, but she didn't say another word and just sat there with her head down, sniffling. Finally, she raised her head up and looked at me with a questioning look. "Jake, is there any hope that you will forgive me?" I didn't want to make it sound like we were in court, but in fact, we kind of were. So I asked her, "Amanda, is this the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" She looked at me with what I would describe as a weird look. It was a look of wonderment. It was a look that had a question, but no way to ask it. It was kind of an "I wonder how much he knows" look. Finally, she said, "Yes, Jake, that is what happened. I am so sorry." At that moment, my heart was breaking, and against all odds, I was able to hide both the pain of her betrayal and the anger at her lies and keep my cool. I got up from the table and walked over to the door and summoned David and Richard back into the room. I looked at both men and said, "This meeting is over." With that, I walked over to the door and turned around. "Amanda, I am divorcing you on the grounds of infidelity. The terms of the prenuptial agreement will be enforced." She was shocked and asked, "But why, Jake?" I confessed my cheating, and I am begging you to forgive me and go on with our marriage. "Please, Jake, please, I love you so much. Please forgive me. Amanda, you lied to me. You didn't care enough about our marriage to lay it all on the line. If you had, I am not sure I could still have stayed married to you, but you never even gave it a chance. You had it all in your own hands and lied. I know you cheated more than the one time with Mark, and I have the proof. I warned you that you had to tell the truth, and you don't care enough about me and our marriage to have done that. It is over." I turned back around, opened the door, and started to walk through. She screamed, "Wait, Jake! I will tell you everything, everything you want to know. Please don't leave me." I spun around once again and glared at her with all the hurt and anger I could muster and spat out, "You were warned. You had your chance and thought you could get away with only one episode, so you lied. You had your chance, Amanda," and I screamed back at her, "It is over." David hurried after me and finally caught up with me as I was getting into my car. He grabbed my arm and asked me, "Do you really want to file on the charge of infidelity?" "Yes, I do." She had her chance. Somehow I must have misjudged her all these years. I wanted her to care enough to confess everything, but she couldn't even be honest with me. Now go ahead and file. I drove out to our house, my house now, and grabbed a beer out of the refrigerator. Actually, I grabbed two and went into my office and sat at my desk and practically chugged down the first one. Then I drank the second one more slowly as I sat and reflected on all that had happened. I had multiple copies of the video downloads squirreled away in safe places, but I didn't think I would even have to make that public because I had her confession. My head snapped up when I realized that I had walked out of the office without the tape. I called David quickly and said, "This is Jake. Did you pick up the tape recording of Amanda's confession before you came running after me?" "Oh," I heard him say, "No, Jake, I didn't. I rushed out after you to catch you, and I completely forgot about the tape. I am so sorry, Jake. I was so careful in everything I planned, and then, because I was hurt and angry all at the same time, I had screwed everything up by charging out of there without my tape. Damn. Well, David, why don't you give Richard a call and see if you can run over there and pick it up? But my guess is that their answer will be something like this. We thought you had everything you needed when you left, so we just erased everything. Sorry. I will be shocked if you actually get it. But don't worry even if you don't get it, because I have plenty of evidence to file for infidelity anyway. Okay, man. I am sorry. I know you didn't want to use the video downloads, and now you might have to if she fights the infidelity charge. Don't worry about it, David. Everything will work out. After I hung up with David, I went to the refrigerator and got another beer. Damn, how could I be so stupid? I wasn't lit up, but I was feeling no pain as I sat and watched the evening news before going off to bed. I thought I heard a vehicle come onto the yard, so I slowly pulled myself up and out of my chair and went to the back door. I walked out onto the porch and saw a dark form. Moments before the lights went out, something hit me on the back of the head and all I saw was blazing light, and then I drifted off into total darkness. Beep, beep, beep is what I heard. It didn't take me long to realize that the beeping was close beside me. I opened my eyes and tried to turn slightly to my right to see what it was when the excruciating pain hit me full force. I thought my chest was going to explode, and the pain shot straight up into my head, creating flashes of blue and silver stars. What the hell, I thought. I heard a slight rustling nearby and felt the surge of something in my body, and I was out again. The next time I heard the beeping, I opened my eyes and looked around as best as I could without moving. I had learned my lesson from the first time. I saw a nurse sitting in the chair beside me. I tried to turn again slowly this time, but I couldn't turn. "Hi, Jake. I'm Susan and I'm your nurse. Please don't try to move, okay? Everything is going to be okay and I will explain everything to you, but please lay still. Do you understand me?" I think something was jammed down my throat, but I was able to nod my head a little, so I nodded that yes, I understood. "Jake, I need to go tell the doctor that you have regained consciousness, and then we will be right back in here, okay?" Again, I nodded that I understood. It was finally dawning on me that I must be hurt and in the hospital, but I couldn't recall anything about how it had happened. I guessed that someone would eventually tell me, so I just lay there with my eyes closed until I heard them approaching me again. "Mr. Hagen, Jake, I'm Dr. Martin. You have had several serious injuries as a result of a beating during the robbery of your home. Now that you have come around, I am very certain that you will be okay. But you had to be restrained so you wouldn't re-injure yourself by excessive movements. I'm sure you felt the extreme pain when you tried to move yesterday, am I right?" I had no reason to smile, but I know a slight smile came to my face as I once again nodded my affirmative to the pain. "Yes, we should have been a bit more proactive on the restraints, so you didn't have to go through that pain. I'm sorry. I think we can take off the restraints now, Nurse Johnson, but Mr. Hagen, do not try to do anything on your own yet, okay?" I nodded and also pointed to the tube down my throat. "Yes, we can also remove the ventilator now. Nurse Johnson will do it." The restraints were removed and the tube was removed as well. My throat was killing me and I couldn't speak. I was given a sip of water, and after a short time I could talk, but my voice was really crackly and it hurt a lot, so I just whispered, "Will someone tell me what happened to me, please?" Dr. Martin said, "Jake, it is 7:00 a.m. and you have just regained consciousness and gotten off the ventilator. Your throat is going to hurt for a few hours at least, and we just want you to rest for now. Nurse Johnson is going to sit with you, and after you have had a chance to rest, we need to let the police know that you are able to talk. I will give you a while before we make that call so you can recover some, but you will need to talk to them, and they will be able to tell you everything that happened. I can tell you that medically, you have some serious injuries, including a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and multiple contusions. You also had a punctured lung from one of your ribs that caused your lung to deflate, but EMTs got to you in time to resuscitate you, and after repairing the damage to your lung, we were able to reinflate it. You were actually pretty lucky, Jake. If you hadn't been found quickly, you most certainly would have died. To put it bluntly, you have been beaten up about as thoroughly as you could get. You were unconscious for 5 days, came to for a couple of minutes yesterday, and were out again until today. We are going to monitor you closely for a few more days, and then you will probably be free to go home." As promised, I had the rest of that day to rest, with Nurse Johnson sitting close by the entire time. Anytime I moved quickly, I got pretty severe pains, so I lay pretty still. By later that afternoon, I was able to sit up, and with a great deal of assistance, I was able to use the facilities. Susan, Nurse Johnson, and I had some time to talk, and I found out that she had been about 3 years behind me in school. Her name then was Susan Blake, and she had married Chad Johnson, and she had a 3-year-old daughter, Emily. Apparently, Chad was like Amanda and had been cheating on Susan, so she divorced him. I told her what had been going on with Amanda, and of course she was quite sympathetic. The next morning, bright and early, I was entertaining two police detectives, Harold Simmons and Josh Lee. I asked them to fill me in on what had happened to me before they got too far into asking questions. Detective Simmons said, "Well, apparently it was a robbery that resulted in an assault on you. We found a 2X4 on the porch alongside you, and it had your hair and blood on it. There were no fingerprints on it, so we assumed whoever wielded it had been wearing gloves. The door to your house showed no signs of forced entry, but of course that is because you came out onto the porch and the door was already open." He continued, "When we searched the house, we discovered that a number of pictures had been removed from the walls. There was an empty strongbox in one of the desk drawers. All the file cabinets in the office had been ransacked. The drawers and closets in the bedrooms had been searched, and there were empty drawers and racks of a jewelry box in the master bedroom. We see evidence of a robbery, but of course don't have a clue as to what was actually taken. Detective Lee jumped in. When you are able to go home, you will have to look things over and determine to the best of your ability what has been taken. The doctor told us that it might be 3 or 4 more days before you are able to go home. At that time, we will have you go over everything with us, and we will update the reports." Simmons jumped back into the lead and said it was time to ask some questions. "What do you remember of the attack, and what happened after?" "Well," I said, "not much, I'm afraid. I had had a couple of beers and was watching the evening news when I heard a vehicle drive onto the yard. I got up to go see what it was about and stepped out onto the porch and saw the hint of a person kind of in shadows or darkness, and then the lights went out. I cannot recall seeing or hearing anything else until yesterday. I'm afraid I will not be much help in solving who did this." "Well," Simmons said, "I think we still need to ask you a few questions which should help us work through this. Where was your wife when this happened?" "My wife and I are separated. We are in the process of getting a divorce, so I actually have no idea where she was at the time," I said. "Tell me, Mr. Hagen, can I call you Jake?" "Yes, of course you can. Is your divorce going amicably, or is there contention between the two of you?" "I guess I would have to say it isn't going well. She is contesting the grounds that I am planning on filing under." "And what grounds will those be, Jake?" "I'm going to file on the grounds of infidelity. We have a prenuptial agreement and her settlement is significantly less under those terms of divorce, so that is what she is contesting." "Well, if I might say so, that gives her plenty of reasons to do you harm." "Detective," I added, "I just don't believe she would do anything to hurt me. I can't believe it." "That's okay," he interjected. "It will be something we will look at very closely, however, to do a thorough investigation. So, are there any other people who might have a reason to do this to you? Do you have any business relationships that may have gone bad? Have you had any disagreements with neighbors or friends or family or any others?" "No, I can't think of a thing." "Okay, Jake. I know we will have to take a complete inventory of what was taken when you are able, but 2 things I want to ask about now. Did you have any cash in the house, perhaps in the strongbox, and how much would it have been? Also, did you have anything else in the house, including jewelry and artworks, that would have had significant value? I am talking about thousands of dollars of value or greater." "Yes, there was some cash in the strongbox. I would say it was upwards of $6,000. I usually keep around $10,000 in cash on hand, but I know I have paid some things out of it recently, so it is probably at about $6,000. There were some nice pieces of jewelry, but maybe only a few over $9,000. There was nothing else of significant value that I can think of at the moment. I didn't tell them about the hidden safe behind the bookcase yet because, firstly, the detective never mentioned it, and secondly, I was pretty certain that no one would have found it, and I wanted to keep that a secret if at all possible. Well, Jake, I think that will be it for today. If you think of anything, please don't hesitate to call me. And when you are ready to go home, let me know so we can do that inventory. If we have any other questions, we will stop by here or at your home if you are there." Over the next 4 days, I got progressively better. I had plenty of nap time most days, but some of the time I sat and talked with Susan. I had several visitors, including Kevin, Lisa, David, and Sam. Amanda did not come to see me, and other than Lisa, none of her family came to see me either. I suppose that was understandable under the circumstances, but I would have actually welcomed a visit. Richard, Amanda's attorney, did come to see me. We had been friends for years before this whole divorce thing started, and I was glad he had come. Everyone told me how sorry they were that I had been injured and wished me well. Both Lisa and Sam kissed me on the cheek before they left, and they both had tears well up in their eyes. I had some difficult times over those 4 days, though. I slept, and I know that some of the time I was having bad dreams. I would wake up in a panic with my heart racing and felt tears in my own eyes a few times when I awoke. I wasn't sure where I was, but it seemed that Susan was always there to soothe me with soft words and touches. At least one time I know I woke myself up screaming, but I don't recall any of the bad dreams or the reason for the screams. I found out later that she stayed at the hospital with me even when she was off duty, and only went home to clean up and change clothes each day. She told me it was because of the events of my marriage that were especially close to her heart, and she wanted to be there for me. I really appreciated that too. Dr. Martin stopped to see me and let me know I was going to be discharged. I was happy for that and immediately started to get ready to leave. Susan helped me get ready and actually wheeled me down to the lobby and out the door, where Kevin and Lisa were waiting to take me home. She wished me good luck and gave me a big hug. I know she really cared about me, and I was thankful for her. But my life was in turmoil, including my marriage and my health, so I didn't pursue any further relationship with her. I told her I would like to call her sometime in the future, and that was it. When I walked into my house, I could see the mess that was still there. Kevin and Lisa offered to help me straighten up, but I told them that I would rather leave it like it was for the time being until I had looked everything over. I promised them that I would call them to come help me when I was ready. They reluctantly agreed and left me alone. The first thing I did was walk into the office and check on the safe behind the bookcase. Everything was in there, including quite a bit more cash, certificates of deposit, and some stocks and bonds. It was obvious that no one had found the safe, or those things would have been taken too. The DVD of Amanda's infidelity was safely there as well. I looked through the rest of the office, and other than the cash, my laptop computer, and a few numbered prints of Wildlife by Terry Redlin, nothing appeared to be gone. I did notice that bank statements and credit card statements appeared to be laid out on the desk, so I'm sure someone must have looked through them. I called both and alerted them that my account numbers might have been compromised and to be on the lookout for unusual activity. After a couple of weeks, the investigation into the robbery and beating was moving slowly because the police really had no evidence that would connect to anyone. Detectives Simmons and Lee updated me often on the status of their work, but so far no additional leads had come up. They did mention that because there were no high-value items taken, it was a dead end trying to trace things through fences like they do in some crimes. On their last call, they both pretty much indicated that it would be put on the back burner unless some meaningful evidence came to light. In the initial stages of the investigation, they had asked some serious questions about Amanda and me. I had been open and upfront with them in most instances. One thing I felt pretty strongly about was that Amanda wouldn't have hurt me. And why take things that she would have gotten in the divorce anyway? I guess the detectives agreed with that reasoning too, because nothing came of it. I had established new bank accounts and had new checks printed because I felt my old accounts had been compromised somewhat. Fortunately, there was no activity that I couldn't explain, but I still felt safer in establishing the new ones. I had purchased a new laptop computer and had reorganized everything in the office. I was back in business. I sat down to pay some of the bills that had piled up while I was out of it and came across a bill from Reds Incorporated. A light bulb clicked on in my head for the first time since the robbery. Reds stood for Remote Electronic Data Storage Solutions. I had video surveillance of my yard. It encompassed the house, the grain bins, and the machine shed. The video feed went into the computer in my grain office out by the bins and dryer. Every night, that feed was uploaded to Reds as a storage backup system. It was retained by them, and I paid a monthly fee based on the amount of data retained by them. Every month, I would go in and delete the oldest data to keep the fees manageable. I hadn't deleted anything from the time of the robbery. I had video. I immediately logged onto the website for Reds and selected the day of the robbery from the archives and downloaded the entire day onto my laptop so I could view it. I was hoping that the quality would be good enough to identify who had beaten and robbed me. If it was good, I would copy it onto a DVD and give it to Detectives Simmons and Lee. That would get the investigation going again. As I scanned through the day, I realized there was nothing there that I would give to the detectives, and I knew now that they would never solve the crime. The rest of the bills were paid, and I started planning how I was going to move forward with the rest of my life. I decided to make contact with an old friend of mine from college days who worked for AgroCorp, one of the largest grain merchandisers in the U.S. Through them, I arranged to meet with the powers that be in their acquisition department. It is amazing what people connections will do to make things happen. After about 2 weeks, I had worked through my plans with AgroCorp, and I took a little side trip to Las Vegas. I ended up flying to Phoenix because I had some business there, and then drove up to Vegas to do a little gambling. After 2 days, I flew back home and put all of my plans into action. I called David and had him call Brown Dairy to set up a meeting for me with Amanda and her brothers John and Paul and her sister Lisa. I told him that he should mention that with the impending divorce, the grain reserves required by the state would no longer be sufficient because they wouldn't be able to include my grain stored there. I had David tell them that I wanted to sit down and discuss the situation with them and come to some resolution. I think David shocked them because they readily agreed to meet with me. I guess they hadn't given any thought to what would happen if my grain was no longer in the equation. I walked into the office and greeted them all. Hello, John, Paul, Lisa, Amanda. I guess you understand one of the reasons I felt we should sit down and resolve some issues. John started to say something, but I held up my hand and said, I think I called this meeting, and I suggest you all just sit here and listen to what I have to say before you make any comments. I honestly think it will be in everyone's best interest if you do that. First, I would like to put this divorce to bed, if you will. Sorry about the dig, Amanda. I put the last draft of the divorce down on the table in front of Amanda and told her, sign these, please. She said, Jake, I don't want a divorce. Whatever you think I did was not worth throwing away all the good years we had, and I wish you could forgive me and work through our problems. I certainly don't want to do this here in front of my brothers and sister. Amanda, we are going to finish this now. There is no tomorrow for our marriage, and the sooner you sign these papers, the quicker we can both get on with our lives. She got all red in the face and blurted out, well, if you must divorce me, I still plan on fighting the infidelity issue. That is the least you can do for me. I knew she would play that card, but I was of course ready for it. If you choose to fight me on the infidelity issue, Amanda, I will have no recourse but to put this DVD into evidence before the court. And I threw a copy of the DVD onto the table with the divorce papers. In case you are wondering what it is a video of all 8. Yes, I said 8 times you cheated on me at the spa. Lisa's face turned brilliant red and she shot daggers at Amanda. You didn't, Amanda. How could you do that? You told me you did the same thing I did when approached and shut them down. How could you do that to Jake? Yes, Lisa, she did do that. She screwed Mark that first night when Stephen approached you. Then she screwed Stephen the next night. And on your second visit, she screwed Mark all 3 nights. And on this recent visit, she screwed him 3 times. So yes, 8 videos of you screwing Mark and Steve ought to get my infidelity issues squared away quite well. Sign the damn divorce papers right now, Amanda, or I go to court with this. I am done messing around with you. I could see that John and Paul were also in shock, and Lisa was quietly crying while Amanda signed the divorce papers. I left her 1 copy and put the rest in my briefcase. Amanda had a numb look on her face, and there were unshed tears in her eyes. For what, I couldn't be sure, but it didn't matter. I could see that she was shocked that I had the evidence to prove multiple incidents of infidelity, but she wasn't done being shocked yet. Now let's move on to the other issue before us, the grain issue. I can tell you we're all in shock by what I just told you, so I'm going to make this quick but unfortunately worse. The bad news is that with this divorce you will no longer have the value of my stored grain included with your reserves and will be in violation of your grain license and your loan covenants. The good news is that I went to your father and presented my case to him, and he agreed to sell me his 51 interest in the business. Your agreement with him had no clause for first right of refusal, so I guess Richard didn't do the best job for you in the purchase after all. I didn't show him evidence of your cheating, but he believed that I had it. So to him this was a no-brainer. He knew the company would be in trouble without my equity, so he sold me his stock, and now I am the majority shareholder in Brown Dairy Incorporated. You each own 12, and as a group are in the minority position with 48. The bad news is that I have negotiated a deal to sell my controlling interest in Brown Dairy to AgroCorp. They are always on the lookout for up-and-coming grain operations, and Brown Dairy fills the bill at the right price. The good news is that you have the option to sell your shares to them for the same price I negotiated with them. It is my recommendation that you do that. I negotiated a very good price. The bad news is that now your company is owned by someone else and they will be evaluating personnel to see who adds value to the company. The good news is that as part of my negotiations, you each have 1 year of guaranteed employment. During that time, I highly recommend that you bust your asses to prove to them that you are a valuable employee. Just so you know, I have also sold my farm to them, and Kevin has sold his farm to them as well. Kevin has signed a long-term contract with AgroCorp to manage both farms, and we all know what a great job he does and will do for them. The shock I had noted on all of their faces deepened and took on a degree of rage as well. John, being the oldest and the unofficial leader of the Brown clan, was the first to actually speak. "What the hell have you done, Jake? You have destroyed this family business because my sister cheated on you. What kind of man are you anyway? How did you get my father to sell you? What kind of lies did you tell him?" "I tell you what, John," I said. "First, your father sold me his stock to keep you out of jail, to keep Paul out of jail, and to keep Amanda out of jail. You ask what kind of man I am, but you should be asking yourself what kind of man you are, what kind of man your brother is, and what kind of woman your sister is." I tossed the second DVD out onto the middle of the table. "I think this video will give you all the answers you need as to why this is all happening. It clearly shows your pickup on my yard the night I was beaten. It clearly shows you and Paul beating me. It clearly shows you coming out of my house with my belongings. Consider yourselves lucky that I chose this route of revenge instead of turning this over to Detectives Simmons and Lee." Amanda finally spoke up. "Jake, how can you do this to me? Amanda, you are another case altogether. With you, I feel like I wasted my whole life. Your father always treated my dad well enough, but always kind of like a second-class dumb farm boy. John and Paul treated me very much the same way, always thinking you were too good for the likes of me. You were my best friend, but you also considered yourself better than me in many ways. I could always tell. You were a deceitful lover. You promised to be exclusive with me and immediately slept with Larry Henson. You were a cheating wife, disrespecting me in our marriage by screwing those men. When you watch that video, remember that I saw every second and I heard every word. And worst of all, Amanda, you are a lousy best friend. You know, I almost died in the attack. One of my broken ribs punctured a lung and it deflated. If the paramedics hadn't gotten to me when they did, I would have died. Interestingly enough, John and Paul broke my ribs, but it was the 3 or 4 kicks from your booted foot that drove the broken rib into my lung. You, Amanda, almost killed the man you say you love so much. I would call that being a pretty rotten friend, don't you think?" Amanda had fainted. Lisa and Paul rushed to her to catch her before she fell out of her chair. Then Lisa went and got a cold cloth to help revive her. When she was conscious again, I took my final shot. "So you now know your father sold me his stock to keep all 3 of you out of jail. He isn't very proud of his children, you know, except you, Lisa, and I'm sure you will hear plenty about that in the future. Like I said before, I believe I've wasted most of my life on you, Amanda, but I won't be wasting any more of my future. Have a great life." With that, I walked out the door. With all deals done, I was free to move on, and I would. Amanda and I got divorced, and I now held the majority stake in the company. A few months after the divorce, all the siblings were arrested for the assault on me. Apparently, someone had sent the assault video to the cops. Amanda's father was upset with me and came to confront me at my office. He entered the office screaming, but unfortunately he had a stroke just before I could come out. Karma has strange ways, I guess. That's the end of Jake's intense and heartbreaking journey of betrayal and revenge. What would you have done in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories.